I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. We're going to open up our November 20th meeting of the Community Development Committee. We'll start off with the roll call.
Jerry Van Sumeren,
Here.
Ryan Shirley,
Present.
Carrie Rice,
Present.
Scott Counter.
Present. Okay, thank you. If we could have, is everyone had an opportunity on the Community Development Committee to review the minutes for, I guess we'll do them one at a time. The first one was for the work session on September 25th. Is there any changes that need to be made or notations? Okay, well, and does anyone see any changes that need to be made or revisions to the minutes? Thank you. From the October 16th, 2025 meeting? None? So we'll move ahead to approve those minutes from those two meetings. Our next area we're going to go into then is the public comments. And for the public comments this evening, we have some that I have here, but we want to also make sure that if anyone has any public comments relating to item number 4, I think it was, for the Samuel Ramo, we'll do that during this public comment because we are not going to reopen a public hearing for that. So for the first one for public comments that we have shown is Bonnie Smith. As you come up to the microphone, please state your name and where you live for the record. Thank you.
Bonnie Smith, Baldwin Township. Is that good? I'll also be reading one for Carla. Do you want me to read it now or come back up?
Is that one on a public hearing?
Same thing. Yes, same one. I can come back up because I filled out 2 cards. It's fine.
Yes, please.
Okay. So mine. How you decide this mess will set a precedent for the future CUPs over multiple commercial businesses. Can 3 commercial businesses be on one CUP? Or do you put 1 commercial business per CUP? How many CUPs can one person have? Who decides? Jason says the board does, so talking to you. Who checks to see that everything is on the up and up? Who checks to see how many large vehicles come in and out onto the highways? Have the laws pertaining to the Lash business been checked into and are being followed? Is no running water, to wash hands, etc., a health option? Have the 2 buildings used for the businesses been checked for being up to code, as was mentioned in former township and county meetings? Is there the correct insurance coverage? I ask you, have you all driven out past the residence? Most of the 15 acres are covered with commercial businesses with a dirty track that covers 5 acres. A couple pictures of a few campers is not what it really looks like. I have, and many of us have, pictures that were taken by Sam Romo of the whole land, and he put them out on social media. I ask that you go drive by the highway, drive behind his house on the old back road, and take a look at it. See for yourself before you make such a huge decision to set the precedent of future businesses. All of the land, all of it together, looks like a dirty, unfinished industrial site. At best, you might be able to say an industrial park. You can't drive by there and ignore the eyesore of the dirt track. This is the thing that started the whole process. And yes, there are paying customers that use it. He may say no, but I have social media posts within the last couple weeks that say otherwise. This doesn't fit under a CUP, does it? Meaning the track. That makes 4 businesses. Who checks on these things? There are 3 big disgusting mud puddles towards the back next to the camper lot that Sam calls ponds. They are massive breeding grounds for mosquitoes. Are they contaminating our well water? The exhaust drippings from the bikes are more easily seeped into the ground when mixed with water. The drippings that sit in the water make the contamination happen faster, and this came from a hydrologist. The dirt from his track runs downhill to the west when it rains a lot, or this spring when it thaws, it will. The neighbor to the west lives real close to the dirt, and the mud goes into their yard and beyond. There is nothing in between to stop the dirt from runoff. Who checks this? There is a lot to this construction site combined that shouldn't all work together under one CUP. The sheds that are being built are 2 to 3 times bigger than before, so they take up more space. The area of land is expanding for this business as well as the camper storage businesses. Is this how the precedent will be set for people that want multiple commercial businesses on their land? We separated some of our land from my daughter and my son-in-law adjacent to the east side of Sam's property. And yes, even the county had to come out and take a visit and walk through. Permits were pulled and a driveway put in off of ours, not off the highway. We went through the whole process. Now in the spring, will this dirty industrial mess next door affect the land value to make it so that they can't pull their loan they need to build? All this was done before Sam spent the summer bringing down trees, burning them day and night, digging, scraping, adding dirt, changing the land, all without anyone from county or township noticing or just not wanting to see it. This is a very well-traveled part of Highway 12. Lots of vehicles, semis, school buses going back and forth from the Baldwin and Woodville schools, and lots of Amish buggies day and night on that highway. This is before adding any more. Is the DOT aware of the traffic that goes in and out of his driveway onto the highway? Semis with sheds, materials going in and out, large trailers going out with large sheds and larger sheds, pickups with dirt bikes on them, and vehicles with trailers hauling dirt bikes. These all being vehicles that can't go from 0 to 60 very quickly, besides the people for the lash business and the regular resident traffic. Your decision of how many commercial businesses on one CUP and how many CUPs one person can have matters. Choose wisely. If anything goes, anything goes. If it's okay for one, it's okay for all.
Thank you, Bonnie. Next, we have Carla Jacobson.
Can't walk with readers. So I have not read through this yet, so bear with me. She's in Alaska on a, sounds like a fun work business trip. That's where she's at. To the members of the St. Croix County Community Development Committee, I am submitting this letter along with updated photos, which have already been handed to you, for inclusion in the public record for tonight's meeting regarding the conditional use permit requests for 2339 US Highway 12. Residential zoning, no exceptions should be granted for track or camper storage. Please see the photos taken from Mr. Romo's public profiles. These photos clearly show the motocross track and camper trailer storage facilities currently operating on this parcel. Both uses are incompatible with the parcel's residential zoning designation. These are not minor accessory uses. They are full commercial operations that generate traffic, noise, safety concerns, and environmental impacts well beyond what is appropriate for a residential lot of this size. For this reason, I strongly request that no exceptions be made to retroactively allow these activities, that you deny CUPs for both and follow up with enforcement on this. If exceptions are granted for one property, they become precedent for others. undermining the purposes of zoning and long-term planning in Baldwin and St. Croix County. No additional CUP should be granted until all requirements are met. 2 other businesses on the property are also seeking conditional use permits. I respectfully request that no CUP be approved until after the property owner completes all required agency applications, passes all inspections, demonstrates compliance with Wisconsin DOT, DNR, railroad, and zoning requirements, shows that existing unpermitted activities have ceased or been brought into compliance. Issuing permits before compliance is demonstrated, removes any incentive to follow the rules afterward. Documented pattern of noncompliance. There is a record pattern of operating first and asking permission later at this property. The county and the town have repeatedly been put into the position of responding after the fact rather than reviewing proposals beforehand, as required by ordinance. Additionally, it is my understanding that the property owner is currently involved in compliance matters with both the DNR and the railroad. While I am speaking to the details of those situations, the fact that multiple agencies are addressing similar concerns further supports the need for strict compliance before any CUP approvals are made. Community standards and fairness. This situation is not about preventing anyone from earning a living. It is about ensuring that all businesses in Baldwin Township follow the same rules, operate within the proper zoning districts, and do not create safety or environmental risks for the community. Granting after-the-fact approvals or zoning exceptions for a single property, especially one already operating multiple commercial enterprises, without prior approval would be unfair to every business owner who follows the proper process. I respectfully ask that the town and county deny any request to allow the motocross track or camper storage to continue in this residential zoned property. Defer, well, that was 1, this is 2. Defer or deny all other CUP requests until full compliance is achieved and verified. 3, require all agency involved, Wisconsin DOT, DNR, railroad, to complete their review before any further local approvals are considered. Number 4, enforce the decisions made by this board. Thank you for your time, your diligence, and your commitment to keeping our community safe, lawful, and consistent with adopting zoning standards. Respectfully submitted, Carla Jacobson, Baldwin, Wisconsin.
Thank you, Bonnie. Would it be helpful for staff to have a copy of what she had read off since it was from a different party? So if possible, would you be able to submit that or a copy of it after the fact? Please. Thank you. Okay, next we have Bonnie Ringer. And again, please state your name and where you live for the record. Thank you.
Bonnie Ringer, and I live at across the road, kitty corner from Sam. I just have questions beyond, I agree with everything that was just said. I was surprised that you guys asked for 2 cups and that only 1 is being submitted. I just was curious why that was. And then no one mentioned that earlier this year, 6 campers burned up on the property there in the wintertime. We don't want that to happen again, especially with houses going to be built right next door. And then also the trees that were planted, there's a handful of them that are probably 7 feet tall, and it's going to take a long time for that wall to grow to be concealed much. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Bonnie. Next, we have Bruce Smith.
Bruce Smith, Glenwood Township. 2 years ago, this property, I own 2 acres within a 40-acre parcel. And 2 years ago, it was designated green space, and now it's been redesignated as hunting. And now the windshield in my boat is blown out. I see there was a deer stand 150 feet from my house. And I'm just wondering if it could be reclassified as, green space again. I'm the only one there with my 2 acres, and the hunters, I don't know, they have their ATVs, they're not supposed to be there. And at least last week, the deer stand that was there was removed by a park official. I don't even know, I wasn't notified that it was even being changed from green space to hunting. And since I'm the one where the only person there that this hunting affects, and when it originally was designated as green space, I was contacted and had the supervisor of parks out there, and I talked to him, and he thought there were going to be trails put in for people to enjoy it, and now it's hunting. And I don't want my property destroyed, and I know the previous owner, his farmhouse, the farmhouse there got broken into and torched because he complained about trespassing, and I don't want my property to be destroyed again now because I'm complaining about the hunting. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on items that aren't in the public hearings? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Brent Johnson. I'm with the Lohman Abdo Law Firm here in Hudson, and I just wanted to briefly comment on item number 4. I'm here on behalf of Sam and Kendall Romo, who are also here. Briefly, they've submitted as you know, an application for conditional use permits for their 3 home occupations. Basically, it's a storage shed construction, eyelash studio, and camper storage, as the committee knows. There's no request for anything related to a motocross track. And so I just wanted to stress these permits are so very important to the Romos because this is their livelihood. And this isn't something that, that they are just beginning to undertake or that they hope to undertake. The fact is that they've been operating these businesses for at least 3 years, these home occupations. And this is an after-the-fact permit, and that's not ideal, and that's not the way we typically like to proceed. But it's also not terribly uncommon, and as a fact of life, not everybody is aware of the conditional use permit process. And that's what happened here. And so the Romos now are trying very diligently to make sure that everybody's comfortable so that they can continue with these 3 occupations that they've been doing for a few years. The property's 15 acres, well-suited for these 3 occupations. There's ample screening. We have Highway 12 to the north, the Union Pacific Railroad property adjacent to the south. We have natural tree screening to the west, agricultural crop lands to the north and east. And so, the fact is although it's an after-the-fact permit request, the positive is that these occupations have occurred, and so we know the facts related to what impacts they have, if any. And up until the time of the application, the Romos have never received any complaints about any of their home occupations. There's been no complaints about the lashes business. Nobody has complained about building storage sheds, and nobody has complained about the camper and trailer storage before the CUP applications. And our firm wasn't able to find any complaints in the public records either. And so everything was just fine for the last 3 years. And I understand that some people are upset because the dirt track, and we just really want the committee to focus on their occupations. And so, you know, traffic associated with these uses is minimal. Right now, there's no employees, it's just the two of them, and there are 2 children who are there. There may be, if they ever get busier, some temporary employees, but there's not now. At the public hearing on October 16th, we heard lots of people talk in support, some in support of the application and others focused on this motocross track. But there was little mention of the home occupations, and nobody mentioned that the traffic is too much, or that there's too much noise, or that there's no light pollution, or anything else associated with these conditional use permits. And they were approved by the town with conditions, and I wasn't, but the Romos were here at the October 16th hearing, and the committee asked for additional information, photos, and dimensions of where the storage would occur. And the Romos have provided that information, but they've also done a lot more. They've since planted 38 7-foot-tall evergreens for additional screening. And that wasn't a condition or a requirement. It's just an effort on their behalf to try to make the committee and the neighbors comfortable with what they're doing. He's also decided that he's going to not park semi-tractors, just campers. He's going to limit the number of campers from his previous request. So they're really doing everything possible to, you know, to make people feel comfortable. And, you know, as for concerns about health and sanitation and proper licensing, those are all addressed in the conditions that the town and also that this committee would place upon them. So we're just really hopeful that the committee will approve their conditional use permits. Thank you.
So, thank you. Is there anyone else that wish to speak in public comment?
I'm gonna bring this up for you guys. The reading? Yeah, the reading that she did on behalf of Carla.
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Any?
I just
Okay.
have one question. Did you receive copies of the pictures in an email or anything of the Romo property?
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this subject or on anything else for the public comment portion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then to the first of the public hearings. So item 1 is a conditional use permit request for, Joel and April Inez in section 15 in the town of Richmond for contractor sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Joel and April Inez own the property located at 1549 126th Street. The property is currently zoned R2 and the lot size is 1.81 acres. It is part of the Cherry Knolls First Edition plat. And underneath the R2 zoning district, pursuant to section 15.345, is major home occupations for a conditional use permit. So currently, the Inezes operate a home-based party supply rental business where basically they take and store the materials, the party supplies on their site. They go out, deliver them to wherever the event or the party is being held, graduations, anniversaries, whatever. And then they also set it up and then they pick it up off-site and bring it back to their home. So there is no parties or events that would be held on this site. There is no storefront and there's no public coming and going from the site. It's simply their own business. Consequently, their hours of operations can vary quite a bit depending on when these events and parties are. But they're currently operating from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. It is seasonal in nature because generally most of their events are outside, so May to October annually. At times, they can have 4 to 6 part-time employees that assist them with their business, and they're estimating the total traffic trips at 2 to 3 per day. The applicant believes that there's no additional sound other than loading of the party supplies into trucks and trailers. So it shouldn't be a public nuisance to the neighboring property owners. They're not providing any outdoor lighting of the area. And all of the business is conducted online, and then they store the party supplies in the storage container and trailers on site with no signage. So this is just an aerial view of their property highlighted in blue. Semstone owns the property to the north. There's a pretty good tree buffer there. And then also they do have other houses around the lot, and they're all about 2 acres in size. Here's a zoning map of the property. You can see their property is zoned R2 along with the whole plat of Cherry Knolls and some of the land to the north. We've got some R1 zoning, so this is some more rural area that's not going to be developed at the same density as the R2 to the west, but there is some commercial over here, not that far away either. So a lot of these homes here in between the Inez property and these commercial properties along 65 could be experiencing a lot of the same impacts. Here's kind of a site plan for the applicant. So if those 4 to 6 part-time employees were on site, they would be parking here. The party supplies are stored in the shipping container here, and then any of their vehicles and that they use in their business would be back here as well. Here's some photos. So this is from the Anez property looking towards the east or towards those commercial properties. This tree line here to the north, that would be the Semstone property. This is from the same site looking to the west. And again, here is the trees from Semstone's property. Here is that shipping container storage area and some vehicles and trailers here for the party supply delivery. This is looking back down southeast into the Cherry Knolls plat. And here is the view of the Anez property from the end of the cul-de-sac from 126th. The town has weighed in on this application, and they suggest approval with the following conditions: that the property owner to confirm that the business use is not in violation of the Cherry Knolls covenants, that additional evergreen trees are planted to screen from directly adjacent neighbors, that the employees must park on the Anez property only, a limit of up to 3 trailers on the property at any time, and that the CUP or that party business use would be reviewed in 2 years. As the committee is very aware, our standards in Chapter 15 for major home occupation here lays out the guidelines. Basically, they are limited to up to 6,500 square feet. And otherwise, the applicant's request does meet all of these provisions to allow them to apply. Then, and that the committee, in order to decide whether or not the request can be approved, is supposed to consider items A through J here, which is the maintenance of safe conditions, water pollution, erosion, and future access roads. So those are all the standard provisions that we evaluate all of our conditional uses on. And that summarizes our staff report, and we've got a findings in fact and conclusions of law document that I can share afterwards, but I'd turn it over for any questions you have or questions from the public, comments from the public.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on behalf or against this conditional use permit?
I would. My name is Richard Sunby,
I'm sorry, sir.
1543 126th Street.
Okay, thank you. Your name and yeah, thank you.
Oh, it is that. Yeah, I want to disapprove of and oppose this. My wife and I and another neighbor or two are been subject to all this traffic, and he's telling you when hours and when he does it and all of this, and that's not true. And I pay big taxes out there. My wife and I looked all over. Finally found a lot there in Cherry Knolls. We've been there 7 years. And I don't feel that we should have to be subjected to someone having a business next to us, running in and out of there. And according to this gentleman, at only certain hours. Well, there's plenty of business plots and commercial land all within a mile or two of his property in that development that we live in, that he could have access to and do just as fine a job. And I don't feel that the amount of taxes that we pay, that I should be subjected to all this noise, traffic, and I just don't feel it's fair that he should have the opportunity. He's been there 5 years, roaring in and out of there. And I've had enough, my wife and I, we've had enough of this where he could had plenty and ample time to find a place and have respect for the ambiance of that development. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's beautiful. And that's the reason we chose to live there and buy that lot. And he has the opportunity to go to a business that isn't district and get his situated as far as his business there, and he doesn't have to drive 60 miles or, it's not that big of an inconvenience for him to do the business when he's already violating the zoning law as far as the residential. So for me and my wife and some other people there to be subjected to that simply because he wants to operate a business and impede my wife and other individuals, the ambiance of the neighborhood, quietness, kids are playing around and, fluctuating in the streets, and they're roaring in and out of there all the time. And I don't feel that we should have to pay those kind of taxes and live under those conditions. So hopefully you'll give him the opportunity to find a place in a business district and have some respect for his neighbors as far as why we purchased those properties and built the houses under the covenants that Derek had and paid all those fees and went through all those hoops to have a good place. And then we have an individual that thinks he has the right to operate a business and intrude on my quietness or the niceness of the neighborhood as far as the amount of traffic. I'm living on a cul-de-sac at the end. The reason we chose that lot was because of that. And now he's going to have his business, he thinks, and he got permit. I'm opposed to it. I don't feel it's right and just to the rest of the people in the neighborhood that aren't as close with all this traffic roaring in and out of there all the time. So if you would give me some consideration as far is you know how much taxes I pay and all the other individuals in that neighborhood. When Derek had it, once the covenants went off after the last lot was sold, that we had adhered to all of those fees and whatever it was in the covenants. And now, all of a sudden, we're gonna have to pay all this money, built these homes, and we're gonna have to deal with somebody that feels he has the right to come there and live there and to put in an application for his business and impede on my quality of life. So I hope you would consider my objection. I really would appreciate that, because I have worked hard all my life, and we chose that. I looked at all the developments around this area, Pheasant Hills, everywhere. My wife, we spent 3 years looking. We found this because all the houses in that development are consistent, pretty consistent, well taken care of, and I don't think that we should have to be subjected to somebody getting a permit to operate a business in that development. I thank you for your time and hope you'll take me into consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else during this public hearing that wants to speak on behalf or against this CUP? I'm Joel Inez. Can I speak? Yes.
Yeah, so I'm Joel Inez, and I'm the guy applying for the permit there, and I do understand where my neighbor's coming from, and I do want to respect all my neighbors, and I didn't know it was a problem with anybody. I've been there for 5 years, like he said. I operate small, probably should have did technically, put in for the conditional use permit first and not, now, right? So I do apologize for that. In response to my neighbor here, I mean, I don't talk to him too often, but I've talked to the other neighbors right around me. They're all fine with me, except for maybe, just him and another guy. And but I want to respect them. Now, that being said, I did talk to the people before. They'd never complained, so I didn't know it was an issue. I don't have a storefront, but I do have a busy place. I do before, I mean, even if I didn't operate a business, I have 5 kids. They come and go. They have boyfriends, girlfriends. They come and go. We have a lot of people coming and going. And sometimes it looks like, boy, we're busier than heck there. And it's, and then my sister and brother-in-law moved in with us for the last year because they're building a house. They have a few trucks, so we are a busy place. Forget about the business, right? But what I would say is, last year maybe I did get a little bit busier than I maybe wanted to even there. And when I was talking to some of the folks on your with the planning committee, she said, would you be willing to limit? And the town of Richmond also said the same thing to me. Would you be willing to limit some of your traffic, some of your trucks and trailers? And I said, yes, I could do that and cut it down so I'm not as busy. I'm not running a storefront. I don't have, people coming there. Only once in a while, friends or something might come, like a friend of mine or something that wants to borrow tables or chairs, but people don't come there to pick up their stuff. So basically what we're doing there is we have the people the guys meet there. We load stuff up in the trucks. I don't know that we're loud. I don't feel like we're loud, but I don't know. So but I do understand at the same time, would I want somebody starting a business next to me? I might have an objection to and maybe say, hey, there should be some conditions put here. So I get that. But I would like to operate there under conditions and I hope that I hope we can find a common ground there to work together and not, just be, told I can't do anything there. But I respect her decision either way. So, any questions for me or?
For the public hearing, we don't
Oh, okay.
correspond back and
Oh,
forth
okay,
with
okay.
questions and answers.
I'm new to this.
But, Well, but
All right.
we're open to anything you want to add or,
No, just that I want to respect all my neighbors. I do. I want to talk to them all. Some people are harder to talk to than others, but I do want to respect everybody. And sometimes you don't know somebody's angry until something like this happens. So that's all I say. But if you do approve this, and have conditions on it, I'll respect those conditions, and try to make it so it's not bad for any of my neighbors. I don't want it to be bad for anybody. I get it. I pay a lot of taxes too, and like the neighbor said, he pays taxes. I don't want to be a dirtbag. So yeah, I respect your decision on that. But I hope to get approved. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on behalf or against this CUP during the public hearing period? Anybody else? Okay, we allow for the one time, sir, I'm sorry.
One time?
Yeah, we do one for each person, one period. But thank you. Is there anyone else, any other individuals that want to speak on behalf or against this CUP? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Please state your name and where you live for the record. Thank you.
I'm emotional. My name is Diane Callahan, and I live in New Richmond, very near to Mr. Arnaz. Our back deck comes out, and between us and their lot that they park the trailers and move them back and forth in, there's 1 yard, and it's their backyard. It's the other person's backyard. So we're up very early, between 5 and 6 most days. We can see when we come out, we can see the traffic, or we can see the trucks moving, or we can see them washing tables or whatever. We almost never hear them. So, it's not ideal to have a business there when my husband calls them the clothesline police. When we moved in, we couldn't even put a clothesline up that was visible from the street. So that's why we call them the clothesline police. So this is not ideal. We expected things to be quiet and not have these kinds of businesses there. But I think Mr. Arnaz has gone out of his way to help us get used to whatever is going on. And I do feel for you. We just retired. We moved out there because of how quiet and wonderful it was. But I do think that I like the conditions that the city gave them. It's not, you can add it now and build what you want and end up with this big enterprise over there. They're still keeping an eye on it. I have one question though about the CUPs. If you grant a CUP, does that mean that allows anyone else in that development to also open businesses on their property? Does that influence it? Can you answer
Yeah,
questions?
unfortunately, we don't go into question answer for
Okay.
these. It's
Well,
more you
that-
just make
That
statements,
would be
but
my
I can
concern.
understand.
How is it going to affect? Most of us feel the same way. We would like to have it quiet out there because that's what we're looking for. And we bought into the clothesline police. We know that that's changed a little bit. Life has changed. The world has changed. Business has changed. And like I said, Mr. Arnaz and his family have gone out of their way, as far as we can see, to make things okay with the fact that he's got a business there, or to be considerate of the rest of us. But maybe I'm just one of those neighbors that you've been able to reach and talk to. But I would like to say, I would support, the Callahans would support Mr. Arnaz and his family.
Very good, thank you. I'll just ask one more time, is there anybody else that wishes to speak that hasn't spoke yet on behalf or against this CUP? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward then with, we'll close the public hearing unless we have anything here. Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and move on to business item number 1.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff provided findings of fact and conclusions of law document here. When we look at the findings of fact, it's basically got the applicants, their property, that conditional use permit for a major home occupation is allowed in the R2 zoning district, that they're currently operating a party rental business on the property, and kind of what that entails. That the daily traffic trips are estimated at 2 to 3 trips per day. Of course, that would be business related, not towards the normal household trips. That they don't have a retail storefront or public facing part of their business on the property. 4 to 6 part-time employees, hours 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And all the business supplies will be stored on site in a storage container, so there'd be no outside storage. No outdoor lighting, no signage, and then the town's comments here, A through E. So with the conclusions of law, the applicant states that the business supplies will be stored in an orderly manner and delivery traffic will be operated safely throughout the neighborhood. Since and that there's not any land disturbance associated with this request, there's no water pollution or prevention of sedimentation needed. And that the proposed site's not going to affect any existing vegetation or any drainage easements within the plat of Cherry Knolls. The site doesn't have any environmental corridors or sensitive environmental areas associated with it. And there's no land alteration, so the slopes and the soils of the property doesn't matter on this request. And the location of the site with respect to the existing and future access roads, and basically everything is back 200 feet from 126th Street. So there'd be no future roads needed. However, and then it will point out it is within the plat of Cherry Knolls, so it is a cul-de-sac and it is a town road to access it. The need of the location, and that they're basically catering to residential events and parties, and so that area is a residential area. It is also very close to New Richmond and partially almost Hudson here. The septic waste is not going to significantly increase with this proposed use, so our staff didn't see that that would be an issue, and that the trash will be contained on site. And then as far as the location factors and that, we didn't see any sources of pollution, and that would be potential for the site. So is there any findings of fact or conclusions of law that the committee has that I didn't mention?
I just had one question. The town of Richmond, I believe, asked for, where did the 8 o'clock to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. come from? Was that?
The applicant's application.
Okay, I thought that was the town, sorry. Because the application I was just looking at says Tuesday through Friday 10 to 6 and Saturday noon to 4. So I guess my thought was, is there restricting it to 6, does that impede anything where that may help the neighbors some?
I mean, I think they just took it off of my website, that 8 to 8. That's when I answer my phone calls, so I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I am Monday through, Monday through Saturday for sure, but,
Okay.
So just for the tape, that the applicant just said that the 8 to 8 hours probably came off from his website, and that's where it's different than the application hours. But it is Monday through Saturday. Anything else?
Yeah, do we know whether or not any other businesses are operated out of this association area, this Cherry Knolls?
I don't know off the top of my head, no.
Do we have a reason
But
to
I will
believe?
clarify a little bit that if a conditional use is granted for this property for a party rental business, that doesn't mean that every lot now within Cherry Knolls can operate a party rental business, nor does it mean that they can operate any other type of commercial business, and that without coming through for another conditional use permit application. So each application and each use is evaluated on its own merits.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Did you have an opportunity to review the covenants for Cherry Knoll with it? Just, I know that that isn't the county's responsibility to enforce that, but just wondering if there was a review done at all to take a look at it.
No, I haven't reviewed it.
Findings of the fact, number 5 says daily trips are estimated 2 to 3 trips a day. That's not really excessive. I'm surprised that there are more trips than that, or the complaint is more trips than that. I guess I'd like a little clarification as to who's right. I mean, the owner mentioned that is a bundle of kids and they all have friends and they all have cars, and that's I can understand that too. I would just like, I guess a little bit more of assurance that it's 2 to 3 business trips a day and not.
So definitely more than 2 to 3 business, or more than 2 to 3 trips a day.
Yeah, Joe, you want to come up here?
There's definitely more than 2 to 3 trips a day because I have people coming and going with, family, right? And also maybe people coming and going there to show up for work. But like I said, I've got 5 kids. They don't all live there anymore, but we do have more than 2 to 3 trips because of the personal stuff. As far as trailers and trucks going out of there, is there some days where there may be more than 2 to 3? Yeah, I suppose there could be in busy days. Most of the time not though, right? I don't know, but it'd be something that I would be definitely have to be more aware of, and I would, have to limit it to what I say I'm going to do. So, yeah, but yeah.
Okay, before you run away. So
Who's talking?
would you be able to, first of all, able to and still do your business, lessen the trips a day, and would you be willing to lessen the trips a day?
Lessen them to what?
From whatever you're doing now, 2 to 3, would you be able to lessen those trips to say 1 to 2 a day instead of 2 to 3?
That'd be tough, but
or would it be?
That would be tough, but I guess it'd have to be better planning, right? So, because we have basically, I've got like tables and chairs right at the place, and go back and get them, and then this and that, and then people are maybe washing them or whatever, and I don't know. Yeah, but I could definitely try. But 3, I think I could do 3 for sure. Like I say, what constitutes a trip? Because I do have family going in and out of there all the time. I don't know,
And I was only talking about trips with your trailer and truck.
Yeah, right. With my trailers and trucks, yes, for sure. Yeah.
While you're up, have you looked at your covenants for Cherry Knoll to?
Yeah, I did
review
look
them?
at the covenants, but, you know, and when I talked to, now this is maybe a ignorant statement, but I talked to a few of the neighbors, and, you know, I asked them about that, and they were told it was thrown out of there when the last lot was built, or what it, you know, and I don't know if that's true, that they're not sticking to those anymore, they're not, and I don't know. I don't know
That
if
would
that's
be-
accurate or not.
That'd be something you'd want to review with your attorney to make sure, because that would be grounds that your neighbors can still be, even though the developer's not there, pending on what the readings are in the covenants, the neighbors can enforce that too. So be something you'd really want to consider to take a look at strongly.
Sure. Yeah.
I pulled up your covenants here. And there's references, there's no reference to operating a business that I could quickly find, but there was a whole lot about Architectural Review Committee. Are you telling us that the organization that you live in has walked away from these covenants and they don't enforce them anymore?
That's what I was told after the last house was built. That's what I was told. And there was, not that this matters, but of course, there's a lot of people that did different things in there that maybe, you know, put a modular home in there that they broke the covenants. So they basically said, well, you'd have to go after a lot of other neighbors. But I don't, you know, I still want to respect that, obviously. I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
was
be.
just looking at, there's a website that
Okay.
has a board of directors, and they talk about their dues in the community. It looks like a beautiful place. It would seem prudent to approach the board of directors and go through the process with them so
Okay.
that all the surrounding homeowners, it's just, I live in an association, and it's both a protection for you as well as your neighbors.
Sure.
They may not be operating strictly under the original covenants that were probably written by the attorney for the developer.
Okay.
But they might be operating with some structure and fashion around property and architectural views, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The other thing that the township had brought up in their requirements is screening.
Yes.
Do you see any problem with?
Nope, I've
screening
already
issue?
talked to a tree planter, you know, a tree business, and so I'm more trying to figure out the best time so that they stay, and they might even do it this fall yet, but I'm trying to coordinate that with the neighbor to the west of me right now, and you know, make sure that we put in the type of trees we both like. But no, I don't have any problem with that. Of course, yeah, that is in the plans. Obviously, I want to, you know, see if this gets approved first before I throw a bunch of trees in there, but yeah.
And the other thing, it sounds like from the review from the county staff that there wasn't an issue with stormwater management. To see that, you know, the truck and trailer parking lot and everything seems large, but as long as there isn't any detrimental impact to any of the neighboring properties, and that you're retaining the water and stuff on site. Then that
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't
I
be an
just
issue.
use hot water, that's it, just from a pressure washer. And, I mean, I've never had a problem with any of the water, but it seems to run off fine, but, you know, it's not a ton, I guess. I don't know, this doesn't matter, or I don't know if this matters, but I do hire 6 different kids in the neighborhood work for me, 6 different houses. And I forgot to mention that earlier, but anyway.
Does anyone else have any questions? I think we'll go back, let Jason continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, how about on the east side of the lot? Are you gonna plant any trees on the east side?
They didn't seem to, that neighbor, I talked to that neighbor, and it's Matt and Heather Bolton, and they didn't seem to really, you know, want anything. They don't think they can't really can't really see anything over there, but I'm sure would be fine to.
Okay. Just to make it clear for everybody on the recording, and that is I just asked the applicant, because he talked about the trees being planted on the west side of his property, but then, and that would there be any trees planted on the east side? That's where the public comment that we heard earlier tonight was. So anyway, it's currently not being planned. The town's comments here with just additional evergreen trees planted to screen from directly adjacent neighbors, that kind of seemed like it would be both sides in that, the way I read that. So I just wanted, but it sounds like the applicant would be open to doing both sides.
Yeah, that would be consistent with our standard policies for those types of development or doing that type of work. So that would be an important part of it to make sure it stays within harmony for the neighbors.
Is there any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, I'll jump into the decision document. So based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law above, we would recommend approving of the applicant's conditional use permit request on the following conditions. The applicant shall be responsible for securing any necessary local, state, federal permits, licenses, or approvals. That there is no parking, deliveries, or pickups off from 126th Street. The vehicles associated with the business shall obey all town road speed and weight limits. All trash on the property shall be contained and kept in a neat and orderly manner. The storage of the actual business supplies shall be limited to the existing storage container on site. So that'll kind of limit that future growth. A limit of up to 3 trailers can be stored on site at one time. Additional evergreen planting shall be planned to maintain the screening between directly adjacent residential parcels, and I'd like to clarify or modify that condition to be on the east and the west sides. Adequate designated parking area for employees and loading and unloading areas for trucks shall remain at the end of the driveway near the storage container. No more than 6 part-time employees who do not reside on site are permitted. The applicants shall work with the town to review the business operations within 2 years following the CUP approval. Any new owners of the property must adhere to these standards and conditions approved. Any change or addition in the use or property requires approval of the zoning administrator. And accepting of this decision means the applicant has read and understands and agrees to all the conditions and allows county staff to access site. So I think we incorporated all the town's comments here, just kind of modified that one to be a little bit more clearer and easier for us to administer. Any other conditions or suggestions?
The town did address the covenants issue, but that, again, it's something that we can't really, that we don't deal with the enforcement on that side. So I don't know, that would be something we would put any conditions.
Right, so we didn't put it as a condition, but it still has one of the findings of fact here, and that's directing the property owner to confirm with their covenants. So that's why it's not a condition, but it's in the findings.
I'm thinking that we would probably want the hours of operation in the conditions and not in the findings.
Okay.
Or not just in the findings, I should say.
Okay, so add one here. Something like that.
Jason, was it a 2-year, 2 years it comes under review again?
2 years, yep.
All right.
Number 11 here.
know, I mentioned hours of operation before. I typically don't like to restrict too much, but being that it's in the end of a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood, I guess what would the owner think of restricting Saturdays a little more than 8 p.m.? Saturdays?
Yeah.
To have your not run until 8 p.m., maybe
Oh, yeah, no,
shorter?
for sure, no. And I guess what is, you know, it's like, I'm out there stacking tables or something like that, right? What does that mean, you know? You know, it's for like, I don't know that anybody would even know what I'm doing, but I'm just, you know, I definitely, I mean, 8 o'clock on Saturday, no, I don't think we'll be there doing that, no. You know, only time we get really busy, June, you know, we're working around the clock, right? But, you know, yeah. And I'm gonna be 55 in April. I don't plan on doing this forever. Maybe in 2 years, I won't even be doing this business, you know? So that's kind of my thought too. It's like, do I wanna win this fight here and then upset my neighbors? I don't wanna do that either. I mean, if I have to go somewhere else, I will. It's not, you know, I don't know. So, again, I'm storing trailers and loading stuff. I don't wanna be, you know, anyway, but no, 8 o'clock's fine. I mean, the other time's fine, whatever time you say.
When do most of the parties happen?
Most of the parties?
Yeah.
Most of the weekends, but, so, but we don't, we set up, you know, we set up everything typically beforehand, then take it down, you know? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're busy on the weekends for sure, but we're pretty much got everything set up by, you know, whatever, but that's the thing too. It's like, do I, you know, it said on the operating thing, you know, I'd rather operate, less time during the day, but I mean, for me not to be going through there on a Sunday, I do go through there on a Sunday, so I have to be honest with that, you know? So, you know, especially in June, you know, I do, you know, so. Typically not that long, you know, but.
What we're talking about is the difference between you actually working and the traffic, which would be the distraction for your neighbors, so.
Sure.
Yeah. What would be a minute?
In our conditions, is that in the finding of facts, the number of trips, or is that in the conditions already?
It's findings of fact, yeah, I was just
Okay.
gonna start trying to create some sample language for you. again, it's just sample language, but I mean, I've kind of heard you talking about maybe limiting the number of trips on Saturday, maybe providing traffic limitations as far as the hours. And then potentially, he's now said that, hey, I got to come and go on Sunday, so that's something new that we have found out. So, but maybe there's a limit on how many trips.
Okay, you said you didn't make any trips on Sunday, you just stacked tables on Sunday, is that
No,
what?
I mean, no, I do stuff on Sundays
You
too.
do?
In the summer, you know, in the busy time, we do, it's like in June. Not, you know, super busy on Sundays, but we do make a few trips, you know. At least what I'm saying is I have in the past, so I want to be honest with you and say we do work on Sundays. I just want to be honest.
So how about if we took off that trip on Sunday? I mean, that would give people one quiet day at least without any trucks or anything. How about, I would be for that, Jason.
Sure.
And limit it to two trips on Saturday, knocking off a bit early.
Okay.
And 0 on Sunday.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't think so. Oh, I did have one question. Yeah, the applicant said something about talking to his neighbors about types of trees. Is there a reason why the town of Richmond wants evergreens in particular?
I assume it's just for screening purposes.
Okay.
Gets kind of sandy there. That might be the best thing.
That could be too, yeah.
The only other thing bring up is because of the conditions and the things that have been brought forward, would we want to do a review in instead of 2 years to cut that back? Or do you want to keep it at 2 years? Keep it at 2?
I'd keep it at 2. That way we coincide with
What the
the town, otherwise there'll be one every year. Us 1 year, then, yeah, I would say.
All right, leave it at.
Can I ask, when you say review, so we review it again, do I pay an additional fee every 2 years?
No, this would be reviewed through the town, and that, but as far as the review and that, it's great that the towns want to be involved, and I think it brings these businesses back in front of them, so in case they're getting complaints from their, residents, and that, but for us on the county's point, if Mr. Inez here violates these conditions and we can take and prove it, it falls automatically into our enforcement process. And if it's a repeated thing, and that we can revoke his permit at any point. And so, I mean, if it's a month down the road and he's violated his permit here 2-3 times, and that we're gonna say, hey, you're no longer operating. So we review it all the time, I guess. It's constant, so. And that is enforced in that by our land use team.
I'm ready to make a motion. I move to approve the conditional use permit 2025-0226 with the conditions that we've laid out.
So we have a motion by Carrie. We have second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no other further discussion, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? So motion carries.
was just gonna say, I got an email from the county of St. Croix, whatever, and I told one of your people this, and I don't know who it was. I didn't talk to you, did I?
No, but I got a copy of it.
Okay, but
So-
anyway, it was Bill, and this guy's going back and forth with me about wanting additional $3,800. And I'm assuming a lot of people might pay that, I don't know. But, because it looked real, but it's, so somebody's hacked into your, I don't know, I don't think they can hack into your stuff, but they hacked into the information that, I don't know.
So it's a little off our agenda and that, but I will clarify this point as long as it's been brought up. And that is that there's a scammer out there that's going in and grabbing personal information off from our applications that are in our agenda packets. And so this one here, and that was redacted in our packet, but we're thinking that they maybe got the information from the town's packet when they published it at the town level. And that, but going forward, and that you will see that we are gonna redact all personal identification information off from the application, not because we're trying to hide it from the public, but because that also happened 2 months ago on a separate application, and it looks very real. And so thankfully, Joel here reached out to our staff and said, hey, is this true? And it was absolutely not true. So we apologize for that, but we didn't have any control over it.
Not yet, but like.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Our
Thank
staff
you.
will be in touch.
So we'll move on then to public hearing number 2. We have a conditional use permit request for Tia Gardner in section 31 in the town of Hammond for a home occupation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tia and Andrew Gardner own 631 150th Street in Roberts. The property is currently zoned R2. It is a 5-acre lot, and they're requesting a conditional use permit for the major home occupation for a home-based business in an accessory structure pursuant to section 15.345 of the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances. So a little background on the applicant. Tia is a co-property owner for the application and owner-operator of Purely Ground Healing. Tia is a certified master practitioner of Reiki Natural Healing. Purely Ground Healing is a Reiki studio that includes body energy work with relaxation therapy techniques, aromatherapy, quiet sound and music, and meditation guidance. Wow. And so they are proposing this use in an 11 by 16 accessory structure. All items of the business will happen within that structure, so there's no additional structures, there's no additional outdoor lighting, there's no additional employees. It would be something that she would operate by herself. The parking on the property is only one space because it'll only be one customer at a time, and that is on site. It's not on 150th Street. She's not proposing any signing. Hours of operation are being proposed at Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. No evenings or weekend appointments. And allowing the business within an accessory structure is considered the major home occupation. So the impact of the request, the applicant states that it's not going to generate any noise, odor, or dust or smoke. And so that should not impact the enjoyment or property values of surrounding properties. The small accessory structure has no impact on the rural character of the area. There's a lot of farmhouses and other accessory structures, including barns and sheds within the neighborhood. We've already went over parking. So the zoning map here, again, it's in the town of Hammond. It does front on 150th Street here, so the parcel is outlined in blue. All the properties in that around it to the north and to the south and to the east are all zoned R2. and the town of Warren is to the west, but most of that land is DNR conservation property here. So really no development over there. Here is a site plan of the area. The little red box here is showing the 11 by 16 proposed accessory structure. And the blue space here is the proposed parking spot for the customer on site. Both of these areas are over 200 feet from any neighboring households. We reached out to our public health department here at the county, and there is no license required by the health department for this type of use. The building will have electric, but will not have plumbing, and they intend to utilize the bathroom within the dwelling if the client needs to when they're on site. And there's no environmental corridors or environmentally sensitive areas on this site. The town of Hammond did review this request at their planning committee and on September 4th, and they granted the approval with the following conditions. One, that they had have to get a CUP from St. Croix County here, and that the proposed accessory structure passes the building inspection. As we went through with the last application, just in the ordinance and that major home occupation standards of section 15.3454, the applicant does meet all of these requirements. And then under section 15.710, the standards applicable to all conditional uses, A through J here, and that we will go through in the findings of fact and conclusions of law. So with that, I'll turn it over to the committee if you've got any questions, or if there's any public that would like to speak.
We'll start out with if there's anybody that wants to speak from the public on this public hearing for the conditional use permit request for Tia Gartner in section 31 in the town of Hammond for home occupation. Can speak for or against.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Hugh, Hammond, Town Chair. So Tia has met all our asks. The building was a shed that she and her husband built, but there were no engineering specs for it. But she did have an engineer come and review the building to make sure the fact that it is being used for public, that it is structurally sound, and that did pass. And then, as Jason's report indicated, check with the health department as far as plumbing and or any other sanitary, and everything is in good order, and it's going to be quiet and minimal, and so the town has no problem with the business. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on behalf or against this CUP? I'll ask just one more time. Anyone else wish to speak on behalf or against this CUP? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone on the, before we open this up as a business item? Okay. Seeing none, then we will close the public hearing for the conditional use permit request for Tia Gartner in section 31 in the town of Hammond for home occupation, and move on to the business item number 2, which is again the conditional use permit request for Tia Gartner in section 31 in the town of Hammond for home occupation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So our findings of fact on this one are, of course, the applicant, their property address, that conditional use for a home occupation is allowed in the R2 zoning district, that there are not going to be any employees, and that Tia is the owner-operator of Purely Ground Healing. Their hours of operation 8 to 4, Tuesday through Friday. Business operations will be contained within that 11 by 16 square foot accessory structure. That the parking area will be on the property, so there'll be no on-street parking on 150th Street. No outdoor lighting or signage is proposed on the application. No additional plumbing is required for the accessory structure, and all business activity is conducted within that building. Like I mentioned, and that the town had originally given approval, and that they just wanted it to pass the building inspection besides this conditional use permit. Any additional findings? Conclusions of law, maintenance of safe and healthful conditions. The applicant states upon consulting with the Public Health Department, Ed Thurman, that there is no county license or inspection required. The structure is clean between clients. If clients require the bathroom or restroom use, they can use the applicant's residence. There's no plumbing in the structure, only electric. And that, so there's no water pollution or sedimentation, and everything will be cleaned and sanitized. The site has minimal topography or slopes, and the surrounding buildings are mostly grass and turf. So there's really not any impact to any topographic or drainage features. There's no environmental corridors on site. There's really no risk because there's no land disturbance for any erosion. The accessory structure is back about 165 to 170 feet from the road, so it's much farther back than even like the house is on site. The need of the proposed use, the surrounding area is primary ag and residential. The compatibility of the use with the surrounding land, it's going to be a pretty minimal or accessory use to the property. The primary use will be that it's a residential property for them. And there we don't have any sanitary concerns with the proposed use because of the little increase that this business might have. And we don't believe that there's any risk for pollution. So on those conclusions of law, our staff recommend approval of the conditional use permit. One, that they still have to make sure that they secure all necessary local, state, and federal permits, licenses, and approvals. There's no parking on 150th. That the accessory structure shall require a commercial building permit if it is one through the town of Hammond. Whatever that is, that's the town's jurisdiction. And it sounds like they've already addressed that according to the public comment that we had. And the property shall be kept in a neat and orderly manner, and that any new owners must comply with these conditions, and any change in the use must also take and be approved by our zoning administrator, and that they agree to these conditions by having this approval, and that they allow staff on site to check for compliance as needed. That kind of summarizes the conditions.
Anybody have anything? All right. If there's no additional comments or anything, I guess we're open for a motion.
Just one comment. I noticed in the application, she wrote that right now she sees 1 to 2 people a month, and she's hoping to get up to 3 to 4 clients per week. So I don't think this is going to be a big strain on anything. I mean, first of all, you have to find this place, which is almost in the middle of nowhere. And then I don't think this is going to cause a lot of problems. based on that, I'd make a motion to pass
Approve.
it, approve it, yes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, we'll now open public hearing for public hearing number 3, which is a 2026 to 2030 St. Croix County Outdoor Rec Plan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members. The last hearing tonight is for the 2026-2030 Outdoor Recreation Plan. I will walk through about a 10-slide presentation to kind of give you a brief summary and overview of this planning effort. The Outdoor Rec Plan is going to be premised on the St. Croix County Parks mission statement, which basically says to create and maintain a vibrant, efficient, and inclusive park system that supports community well-being and preserves natural, historical, and cultural resources. The Outdoor Rec Plan has a number of purposes. Foremost, it provides our park division guiding and development and maintenance of our county park facilities for the next 5 years. The first plan was done in 1970. The last one was done 3 years ago when the Eckert Blufflands Master Park Plan was incorporated into the document. DNR rules require that certain aspects be included in the planning document, such as goals and objectives, the county's recreational focus, which is more passive outdoor recreation, versus the organized ball field activities that you see in the towns or villages and cities. The plan also includes updated demographic information, description of the planning area, inventory of existing outdoor park and open spaces, and a 5-year capital improvement plan for each of our 12 park facilities. But most importantly, the updated plan will enable the county to participate in the various grant programs administered by the Wisconsin DNR. And the department's been very active in securing grants for park and trail planning, stream bank protection, lake planning and protection, conservation improvements, and stormwater runoff projects. Real quickly, this is just a summary of the county facilities on the map. All the park facilities are notated by a gold dot. So again, we have 10 county parks, 2 county forests up in Stanton in the town of Kinnikinnick, also including the 35 off-road trail. The planning document also summarizes all the properties that are considered public and owned by the Willow River State Park, O'Galley Rec Area, DNR Wildlife and Prairie Restoration Areas, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, National Park Service, the local parks of all the cities, villages, and towns, and also the school district-owned parks and fields. They play a key role in some of the city recreational activities. Even though those facilities are off limits during school hours, they are made available to the public in most cases during off hours. Also, the lakes and rivers and private recreational opportunities. With all of our planning projects, we incorporate a very active public outreach process. So this process began in March of 2025, earlier this year. We met with park staff to inventory existing conditions of facilities, needed park improvements, and reviews and goals of objectives. We also established a project webpage and user survey that were specifically sent out to all the governmental jurisdictions, all 35 within the county, as well as outdoor interest groups, chambers of commerce. We also had project boards of all of our county park facilities with QR codes to link to the survey. We'll touch on the survey in just a bit. There are a total of 162 responses. We also had information on the county Facebook page. We promoted the plan update at county libraries and newspapers. We conducted an open house in July of 2025. And the draft plan that was included in your packet for tonight's meeting was sent to all governmental jurisdictions on October 3rd and posted on the project webpage. We also posted a Class 1 public hearing notice on October 16th for tonight's hearing. Basically, the goals and objectives within the plan can be lumped into 5 categories. And we summarize them on the screen above. But basically, they talk about expanding and connecting trails, implementing the county bike and ped plan to create a safe, accessible countywide network, protect and acquire natural resources, whether they're through easements, grants, partnerships, or donations, in order to protect scenic, environmental, and historic resources. Develop and maintain sustainable parks. Adapt facilities and operations, making sure that we're modernizing park facilities, making sure they're up to date, that they're meeting the changing demographics and user needs, and also to promote collaboration and public engagement. Real quickly, a quick summary of the public survey results. We asked respondents if they could prioritize the 8 stated goals within the plan. And basically what we heard was that the responses were most interested in continuing to evaluate, maintain, and update our county parks and facilities to meet the recreational needs of the increasing population and changing demographics. And also to identify, acquire, and retain lands for outdoor recreation and for protection of scenic, threatened, and environmentally sensitive areas. We also asked a couple of various questions within the park division. 83% of the respondents believe the daily and annual park fees were reasonable. Almost 3/4 of the respondents supported the year-round use and snow plowing of the St. Croix River Crossing Loop Trail in Holton that connects to Stillwater. Also, we asked residents to prioritize the top 3 improvements they'd like to see at Eckert Bluffland Park, the most recent park purchased on the St. Croix River. The most popular improvements were restrooms, rustic trails, and access to the St. Croix River shoreline. Respondents had a number of options to choose from in that category: playgrounds, pavilions, pickleball courts, but those 3 rose to the top. And then the last 3 slides, we're just going to summarize real quickly. We picked these 3 of the 10 park properties because these are going to be the most heavily invested properties over the next 5 years. The Eckert Bluffland Master Plan, as the committee recalls, was amended earlier this year to kind of emphasize the nature-based activities, reconfigure the access onto Highway 35, and to primarily lower the development costs from the previously approved master plan from $18 million to $3.6 million. There is $1.5 million in the current capital improvement program that was allocated by the county board for items 1 through 8. That talks about reconfiguring the access, beginning the establishment of the trails within the park, creating a parking area, retention pond areas, and providing access off of River Heights Trail into the park. That accounts for the $1.5 million. Items 9 through 17 on the list include flush toilets, playgrounds, sitting benches, all the way down to item 17, which would be a future maintenance building facility. Except for item 17, items 9 through 16 would be grant eligible. So again, updating this plan to making sure we can check the box with the DNR and making sure we can apply for those grants. These grants pay in upwards of 50 to 80% of project costs. So updating this plan is very important in order to continue to apply for those grants and finish these projects. The next park we highlight is the Glen Hills Action Plan. And the first 2 items talk about installing water service to campsites in the Peninsula Campground, as well as installing campsites on the ridge overlooking the boat launch. You can see those are approximately $500,000, but again, most of the projects you see listed here are grant eligible. And again, the department's been very active in the last few years in going after these grants, and we see that continuing into the future. And then lastly, we have the Homestead Parklands Action Plan. As you can see, we highlighted a number of different projects. The Natural Resource Education Center for the $800,000 was just a carryover from the last plan, and that's something we might want to have some discussion on with the committee. The second one, the one vault toilet and one flush toilet, the $290,000, we just secured a grant for half of that amount. So again, we're going to start working on these projects as they're listed here. So from that aspect, we put the draft plan online. We received 6 different public comments that are within your packet. We did publish, as I mentioned earlier, the Class 1 hearing notice for tonight's hearing. I think I'll stop there, and if he has any questions.
So we are currently in a public hearing on this, so the first thing we'll do is open this up to any public comments for or against, or just commenting on this the 2026 to 2030 St. Croix County Outdoor Rec Plan. So if anybody would like to speak. Please state your name and your location. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Counter. My name is Mary McGurran, McGurran. I live in the village of North Hudson, and I'm here to express my appreciation for the committee and for the work that the county staff did in developing this plan, and express my support for the plan. I particularly want to bring attention to goals 1, 2, and 8, issues regarding trails, which we know there's a lot of community involvement in right now, and the St. Croix Bike and Pedestrian Trail Coalition has a planner from the National Park Service that's been working with them. I believe that this committee is aware of some of the work that's being done, and the fact that the county, as well as the city and the village and the towns of Hudson are, we jointly have property along the lake, or the river, I'm sorry, which has potential to really help express some of these goals, particularly regarding the environmentally sensitive native and natural areas that could be threatened by development. And I know that you've heard things about that this year as well, and appreciate your support for the protection of our environmentally sensitive areas as part of the park plan. And I also want to say I especially appreciate in Goal 8 the offers for support for municipalities in our own planning and in our own grant application. So thank you very much for your work, and I support this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in regards to the St. Croix County Outdoor Rec Plan?
Good evening. My name is Celeste Cobrell. I live in the town of Hudson. I want to reinforce the comments that Mary McGurran just made. And I urge the county to do whatever it can to preserve the existing options for achieving some of the goals in this plan, specifically regarding improved public access to the St. Croix River in the area where the Lake Malilu Dam and the St. Croix River exist. There are a number of either individually or jointly owned properties by the county, City of Hudson, Village of North Hudson, Town of Hudson, that are actually being used as de facto public parks, as you may recall from some of the slides I presented earlier in the summer. And there really isn't any mention of that specifically in this recreation plan, but please keep in the background that right now our local units of government do have an opportunity, which is ripe, to work collaboratively to enhance some passive public use of those areas to protect and preserve important natural resources that when you look at your comprehensive plan for the county, that area is mapped as an environmental corridor. It's identified as being very important to protect from potential development in order to preserve the St. Croix
River and the Lake Malibu water quality. And community members have put a great deal of work into developing the Lake Malibu, what they call Trestle Park Draft Concept Plan. I just encourage you to maybe not focus so much on the trestle part of it, because it could be a very nice and important amenity in terms of a actually official public park without even thinking about that trestle bridge. At a minimum, again, I would encourage you to at least look at doing what any responsible property owner should do in order to avoid negative impacts on the natural environment there, because it is being used by the public. And as I pointed out previously, there aren't any public, there aren't even porta potties there. People do relieve themselves on the ground in the summer. There aren't really adequate trash facilities there. Just some minimal things, even without officially turning it into a park, I think would really enhance the area. And also, right now, as you are aware, there was a request made to rezone the privately owned property that contains the trestle bridge itself and some land to the south. You may not be aware that the Village of North Hudson Plan Commission has delayed consideration of that rezoning request. And it would be appropriate, since the county is a complete or partial owner of 3 parcels that abut that trestle bridge land, to express to the Village of North Hudson how any change in zoning might negatively impact the county's own interests. And that would not be telling another unit of government what to do, that's simply speaking as a neighboring property owner. And rezoning decisions under the Village of North Hudson ordinances are supposed to be made to serve the best interests of the neighbors, the general public, and the village. And rezoning is not supposed to be done just in order to give special privileges to one property and its owner. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak during the public hearing for the St. Croix County Outdoor Rec Plan? Okay, seeing none, we'll close item number 3 in the public hearings for the 2026 to 2030 St. Croix County Outdoor Rec Plan, and move to business item number 3, which is a resolution adopting the St. Croix County 2026 to 2030 Outdoor Rec Plan. So first, is there any comments or things to bring up? Go ahead.
All I've heard is support for the plan overall, but I have heard a lot from the residents of Hudson about this parcel of property near Lake Malibu that has some jointly owned, or at least adjoining property. Is it possible to pull up the map? I know Mark Garrity in his public comment letter had a nice map. Is it possible to pull that up so we can all be looking at the same thing? So there's a visual there. So you can see the little call-out boxes that say St. Croix County, and then there's some City of Hudson, but there's also a long stretch that says, what is it? Union Pacific Railroad Company. That's, I believe, the property that is now privately owned? That's correct. Is that your understanding? Okay. So I guess my question for staff and for anyone around here is, in the event that the Village of North Hudson were to rezone what I believe the south parcel is currently zoned conservancy, if they were to rezone that as residential or something else, what do we think that would do to the property that is owned currently by the county? Does anyone want to offer a comment?
I guess in terms of the area that's owned by the county, very long and narrow. I don't know how these parcels were created. I haven't been here long enough, but in terms of the usability of them, it's very limited. And they are within different unique jurisdictions, the village of North Hudson and the city of Hudson. So in terms of the outdoor rec plan, we didn't really address that.
Right. I'm not suggesting that we should amend anything here in terms of a future investment. It's just preserving the value of the current property. I do drive to North Hudson frequently. There's always people down there in the summer, at least and kids dropping fishing lines and that kind of thing. It does get used quite a bit. It's kind of a quiet, not so quiet secret. My concern is that the developer has some plans, and I can't remember if it's condos or multifamily homes and hoops that would have to be jumped through. But once it's developed, it seems to me that the value to the county rapidly declines and maybe goes to next to nothing. So what I would like to do is suggest that for next month's meeting, we call this out. And, I did write something up that we have a motion to send a letter to the village expressing our preference to retain the current zoning of the southern parcel of the property, and I have the property number. So it's really more of a future agenda item that I'd like to see. I don't know what process we go through to do that.
Yeah, I don't think this is related directly to this agenda item for the outdoor rec plan, and because you're not asking for it to be added to the rec plan. I think what you're asking for is a future agenda item.
Yes, yeah. Maybe that's what it is, because it just, when we talk about the parks, this keeps coming up.
Yeah. So you can ask for that as a future agenda item, but I
Right.
discourage you from debating any further on
Right,
that than if
we'll do
it's
that.
not pertinent to the outdoor rec plan.
Sounds good.
One thing that I noted on the outdoor rec plan was that you had a potential of a $800,000 investment in a outside, trying to think of what it was, education center at Homestead. And I'm just, the only thing on that particular thing, I think though, that's something, this is the first I've really seen of that. It'd be something, I guess, want to really highly consider whether Homestead's the right place or Eckert or, because one of the points would be that when we're doing this for the future, we also have to consider that will have to be a position there to, as personnel to also operate that facility, and where will we get the most benefit if it is Homestead Park, be it, but we have several other parks too that just need to really think that through for the future.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, it was actually in the 2019 outdoor rec plan.
Okay.
Then when
I
the
just didn't see it.
2022 plan was updated, we didn't take it out, we left it in. And so it's simply a carryover from those two prior plans. So, it's a fair amount of money, and we didn't really know if we should leave it and let the committee comment on it, or kind of leave it to the committee's discretion on what you'd like to do with that. My understanding is, based on the material I found, is that the intent of the education center was to provide background information on the owner of the Homestead Park property, the generations that was some of the original from the 1800s, kind of document some of the homesteading of the property. And then there was also some provision about talking about the perch lake itself, the water quality, and just the background of the area.
I think if you're looking at it just for general information thing, that might be something that may be able to be designed differently, so it wouldn't have to be a manned place, but it can be a sheltered place with boards or ways to disseminate the information without making a physical structure that would have to have a personnel involved, just to make it more efficient for the county park system. Something to think about anyway.
And again, the CIP or the action plan is a guide. It's not suggesting that we are going to do it, but it's just been a placeholder as far as holding its importance. So
Sure. Go ahead, Jerry.
I'd agree with what Scott said. I don't know if I'd put that at the top of the list. What I find disconcerting is we have beautiful parks. We've asked a whole lot of people, 100,000 people, for their opinion, and we got, depending on which slide, 161 or 162 people that responded. So I'm wondering sometimes does our committee have more interest in it than the rest of the people in our county? It just seems like we're spending a lot of money, and then this comes up from time to time in my shop. We're spending a lot of money on parks when we could spend it other places, but also where there aren't that many people that seem to be really behind it. They will use it if it's there, but they really aren't willing to make any sacrifices for them. And I think this is one example of it. So, and I will have to admit, I did not respond either, but I just sometimes wonder if we're just pleasing ourselves.
If I could add, Mr. Chair, just a couple of things in that. So this outdoor rec plan was, again, I'll call it streamlined from the past versions. You would notice that quite a bit. Just we removed a lot of the unnecessary history on when a fence was repaired or when a sidewalk was repaired, little stuff like that. As far as the overall projects and improvements, and that they really hit towards that #1 survey response. You know, it's bringing our 1970s restrooms, vault toilets up into more of a modern day thing. And so some of these we've already worked on. You'll see that also some of these numbers are pretty large, maybe, or larger than what I would expect the cost to come in at. But we're also trying to build in contingency and inflation because we're looking at 5 years out. So that's something to keep in mind for it. But that nature education center, I think there's definitely probably some opportunity to I'll call it a light remodel of our existing entrance building there and our existing kiosk, and that we have to display a lot of that information and that without being staffed. And so I didn't want to make that call though, so I wanted to bring it back and that to the committee. I really do use these plans and that because these plans, how we really drafted the different improvements is that we took and looked at the different grant opportunities that are available today. We can't guarantee that they're going to be here 5 years from now. And we kind of set the years based on when we thought we could fit those into grant applications. And so that was kind of the basis for the timelines. And again, like the amounts, we're just trying to take and factor in some inflation.
Well, the only other comment I'd like to make is overall, I was very, very impressed with the plan and the reading of it and how it was put together. And I like where we're going with things and want to thank both you and the rest of the staff that worked on this to put this all together and for all of the input and the work getting out to the public to make sure that we get as much public participation as possible. I want to thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I'm not going to accept any of that credit. That was John Helgers. So
We got a lot of hands in this, so a lot of staff were involved helping, so.
We have a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we approve the plan for St. Croix County 2026 to 2030 outdoor recreation.
So we have a motion and a second.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Oh, go ahead.
You know, in our survey, the one thing that they talked about was access to the river, and we really, it's more of a thought for later of what we do with Eckerd Bluffs, because we don't really have an access or anything planned down there, but maybe it's something to think about.
No, there's a stairwell in the plan to get access. There's very steep terrain. That's the problem.
Right, and also with that is the emergency management response side of it, so we might have to have a less primitive trail, make sure we do an exceptional job on erosion control and stuff. Not that that would be used for the general public, but to provide access. But what I think it really does show, and it really has, kind of assured us with the new master plan that was adopted by the county board back in March, is the new master plan is really hitting at those top 3 priorities of the public. And so that's a good thing that we're at least moving in the direction that people want to go.
I think the only other concern that I was having was, as we had wonder in public comment again, is I know at Eckert, we've, having that development plan so that we're kind of working at that one is an important one in respect that under our current conditions, with a lot of the purchase agreements that were made for the land required to have it open for hunting. And as we do this development for the future and we get higher usage for the park facility with park trails and things that are happening, it would give reason to more limit that open hunting areas. So I guess if there's no further discussion. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to business item number 4, which is a continuation for the conditional use permit request for Samuel Ramo in section 33 in the town of Baldwin for home occupation. This is being continued from the October 16th, 2025 meeting.
All right. So here is a photo from Romo's website out there on Highway 12. Our aerial image and that, which I believe we also have here from the spring of 2025, doesn't show this track. So this is brand new. This is basically that drone image. You can see a couple of the mud puddles here in the back. We have advised the applicant and that the DNR may require a stormwater and erosion control permit for this site as well. And this was really what brought forward the original complaint to us. And then while we were on site, we also noticed the other 3 businesses that are part of the conditional use permit application. Now, as far as the track goes, if they're just using it for their own personal use, there's nothing that we have in our ordinance that says that you can't take your 4-wheeler or motocross unit out in your backyard and go over some bumps. However, in that whenever you hit to where you're allowing public to come in, there's more concerns, of course, with traffic liability, et cetera. But basically at that point, it falls into 3 different uses that could be in our Chapter 15 zoning ordinance. One is like a racetrack operation. One is an outdoor entertainment facility, so that might be if they had, food trucks or other, events going on here. And then the third would be more of an outdoor recreational facility, and that which really probably fits this type of use if it was just to remain as the track. But that requires, public coming in, a certain number of public coming in, and from what we've gotten from the applicant, and I believe he's confirmed here during the public hearing, is that use, maybe what it was originally intended for or planned for, is not the use that facility will be now. And so we've heard a lot of public comments. That's something that our code enforcement will have to follow up on if that use does become something different. I believe that the applicant has talked to the town of Baldwin to take and try to rezone that property into more of a commercial use, that one of those three other uses would be allowed. And it did not align with their comprehensive plan. And so that has basically been put on the back burner, and they still want to focus on their three other uses. So is there any questions on the track before we jump into kind of some of the other stuff? Supervisor Rice.
I just want clarification. So at this point, the business known as Moto Monkeys MX is off the table? That's not for consideration tonight?
Correct. So this is their website, and correct, that is off the table. That's not part of this. If they become open to the public and they start taking and operating that way, we did have one complaint that said that there was public there. We asked for pictures or documentation because it was on a weekend, and that's what we would suggest of the neighbors, is to make sure that they take that photographic evidence, and that because our staff just aren't here on Saturdays and Sundays. You can also call the sheriff's department to take and have them documented in a sheriff's report as well if it was getting out of hand or too noisy. So
follow-up question, Jason. So this is, are you pulling up a live shot? Because I pulled it up here, and it looks as though that Facebook page is still up. If I were shopping around it, it would convey that this is a business that is open.
Yeah, I am not pulling it up live here. This is what was in the agenda packet. But I do believe that it could be still up. We don't police when people can put up their pages and stuff. We do know that they had planned an event back in September, I believe. And at that time, they were going through this application process, and so they canceled that event, and that because they didn't want to take and violate the town's conditions or the county's.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jason, on this particular one, if you go back to the photo there, thank you. Notice just without out measuring this, but this looks like it would probably be in excess of an acre of excavated area.
It is.
With that in mind, have there been, do you know if there's been any permits pulled with the DNR for the excavation work, and is there proper silt fencing and stuff that is protecting so that there's no runoff to the US 12 ditch or down on the railroad right away and the side properties, a perimeter silt fence?
So at the initial inspection, there was no permits pulled on this. You'd have to ask the applicant and that whether or not he's reached out or the DNR has reached out to him about a permit since then.
We heard public comment that said that the DNR and one other entity was, Union Pacific Railroad was investigating something. Do we know anything about that, or is where that's at?
I don't know. So we're always a little bit careful about the jurisdictional line between what's in our jurisdiction or authority and what's in theirs, because we don't want to be conflicting information. And so that's one of the reasons the DNR plans are generally much more in depth and much more in detail and that than what our requirements would be. And so that's why we took and allowed them to take control of that. It has been reported to the DNR, I know, so it's not like they're not aware of the site.
Are we required, though, with something like this for what would be considered a land use plan, which would, where the state DNR puts the onus on the county for things like erosion control and all of those different factors that are normally inspected amongst county staff?
Yeah, probably. And that would probably fit in one of the areas. The tricks with like the commercial uses that I was saying, when the property is zoned in commercial, it's an allowed use or a permitted use at that time. And when I say permitted, that's kind of confusing because there's no permit to operate. It's just basically allowed. And so, but I would believe that, yes, and that there could be a land use and that followed up from our office and that for the erosion control out here. And potentially getting it reestablished, you know, depending what that would look like.
So who would instigate that, Jason? Would the county do that, or would the DNR do that, or I mean, if there's silt running down front, back, east, west, whatever, we should address that. If we are the ones who are going to have to address that, we should address that now, even though that's not on the agenda for tonight. But we had better get going at it, or we're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Yep. We would assume the DNR would. Usually they're pretty involved in these, you know. And I guess from our standpoint, we were just trying to address, you know, the bigger picture, the CUPs, because that might lead to more grading too. So,
would it be prudent for someone from the county to check with the DNR if they're even aware of this?
we know that they're aware of it. We
Okay.
relate it to them.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
Yep.
But maybe check on what what Scott said, if we're going to be on the hook for putting a silt fence in or figuring where it should go, then we should get at it.
Okay.
Frost's going to happen.
Yep. I'll have Abby follow up on that. So then some of the more recent correspondence that we had with the applicant, after the applicant was here, heard some of the feedback from the committee members. One of the things that the committee brought up was about the semi-trucks being parked in the outside storage area. And the applicant is willing to remove all those semi-trucks to reduce any potential contamination from oils or fluids that may leak from those trucks. At that time, he also said that he would just reduce it right down to travel trailers. And previously, the application mentioned kind of having around 40 normally, up to 50 max. And now the applicant is willing to drop that to 25 because that's currently about what is on site, so that there wouldn't be any expansion of the use. The committee had asked for defining where those areas of outside storage for the campers was going to be, and also for the sheds, and kind of how many sheds were going to be max on site. Before in the application, the shed storage was between the construction building where they build the sheds and Highway 12. And you'll see in the map here and that they have proposed that to be in the back. So here is aerial image, and that is current. So you can see there's some tree removal coming down here for the track. Here is the outside storage. You can see a couple of semi trucks here, and then also the outside storage along here. Now the applicant is proposing the shed storage to be back in here, which you'll see on the next diagram. So the applicant is looking at two 30 by 125 foot areas, one here and one over here. That'd be for the outside 25 campers. And then the sheds 5 to 8 is what the applicant was saying, between this 24 by 50 area, kind of in the grass. And so the applicant is offering that as an option to try to keep the front yard clean and to minimize the impact on the public up front. And then we also got some new photos for the committee to consider. So this is standing kind of to the west, or sorry, to the east side of the shed where they build the sheds and facing to the south. So the Union Pacific line is back here in the trees. And again, these were on November 14th. Kind of another one showing some building supplies here. This is just a little bit farther to the north. This is facing to the south. Again, the tracks are back here. Here's the semi the camper storage, and then this is kind of showing where those sheds would be lined up in the back. The applicant and that out along Highway 12, and that I believe it was brought up by attorney, and that here that they had put in 38 trees out along the road to assist in some screening. I think we've got a couple pictures of them. So those are 7-foot evergreens. So that is basically the updated information that the committee had requested at the last meeting. Is there any questions? Supervisor Van Summeren?
Jason, one other question that we actually began our discussion with last month was, is it allowable, do we allow 3 different home occupations to be operated from one location? And I'd asked Corp Counsel to check in that. I've not heard from her. Have you heard from her?
I have not, and so generally there's not a limit on the number of permits or applications that you can have. In the past, they maybe required multiple applications and that, well, those fees got very high, and really our cost and that were very much the same as one application because we've got one public notice, one publication, one staff report, one hearing, that kind of stuff. And so our fees are supposed to be respective and that to our actual costs. And so that's why all of these were put together since they were able to apply. Now, if they would have applied for one now and then came back a year later, obviously they would have to pay for the fees.
Okay, I will admit that I tried to do some checking with the state of Wisconsin, if there is such a thing. And what I found, I ran out of time before I could find it, but I did find many municipalities, including counties, that limit it to one home business. And when you think of it, you know what, when you look at our codes, 15-345 2E, 1, 2, and 3, as far as exterior storage for any equipment or merchandise or inventory or material, it's hard to have 3 different businesses going on and be able to store that all, none of that outside. Same way with storing completed products. They're not supposed to be stored outside. And most of the raw material has to be, only 45% of the sales can be merchandise, not items not produced on site. So it's real hard to do that with multiple businesses there. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start with the first question is, what do you think? Is 3 the good number? Is 10 the good number? Is 50 the good number? Remember, this is all from a home, and I think that's where we have to start, and then go from there.
And generally where we see, I mean, there's no limit on the number of conditional uses you can have on a property, but generally the conditional uses are related to each other. And so it's maybe in that we're a racetrack, but now we've got a conditional use in that to do a motocross event, and then we've got another one in that to maybe do a music concert, you know. So they're kind of similar, but kind of different. And that's maybe not the best example, but these ones are totally different, unrelated.
And I'm not sure if that makes that better or worse.
Yep.
Like I said in the previous meeting, my bigger issue isn't the lash business or the shed construction. It's the camper storage. You know, our normal home occupations, like Supervisor Van Summeren just said, only 45% shall be merchandise not produced on site. It doesn't really fit with camper storage. Because I know there'd be a lot of places around St. Croix County that, you know, storage and that is a lucrative business, and people would love to do it if they could. But there's a lot of places that would that really restrict and do that for a reason, and I'm having a tough time with that one.
One more issue, Jason, that I happened to think of today, and I was at a meeting at the Highway Department early this afternoon, and I asked Robbie if he knew, and he knew of this situation, knew of this place, because I had a particular question. He said, yeah, he knew where it was. And I asked him about, that enters, that their driveway here enters onto a US Highway 12. And I asked if there were, with traffic coming and going, the type of traffic, this would be motorhomes, trucks bringing material in and hauling it out, if there would be any restrictions or anything that would be needed or necessary, any permit to enter and exit onto a US highway. And he said, yes, there would be, most likely. And he said one thing that would make this particular spot a target for that is to the west of this is that curve. So cars could come around the curve. And if a truck is, a semi, for instance, is pulling in or out and it's crossways in the road, it could be a bad situation. So he was going to mention it to someone. The state evidently takes care of the federal highways in different areas. So he was going to mention it to someone to have them check that. Because he says the ruling really reads that if you're coming off of a business on a driveway, a semi-truck and trailer have to be able to turn. Let's say he's making a right turn, has to be able to make that right turn without the front wheels of the semi-tractor going over the center line, over the yellow line, the center line. Which means that driveway's got to be wide enough so you can get the trailer off of there. So he said, does the person who's asking for this, does he know that? Because this could be a rather large expense. You may have to make a driveway wide enough to do that. The same way with camper trailers and things like that. Now you're pulling that with an underpowered car or pickup, whatever. Making that turn from a narrow driveway onto a US highway may require a complete change to the driveway. So I need to mention that too, if that's been thought of. If that's something that would cause us to postpone this for another month until the applicant could find out if that needs be. But again, that could be a deal maker for the applicant too.
Yeah, we can, because of the situation, what we're doing here, I'd like to open it up that if the owner of the property wants to make comment or have input additional, or is representative regarding the discussion that we're having, you're open to do that.
There's quite a few different concerns, so I'll probably have my attorney cover some of them. He took better notes than me, but the driveway, like my farmer, he gets his grain semi-truck in and out of there, no problem. What were some other things? I'm drawing a blank. Do you want to touch on some of the notes you made?
Sure. I'll just comment briefly that one of the conditions that has been placed upon the proposed conditional use permit is compliance with all applicable state, federal, et cetera, laws. And so that would still be an onus on the applicant to make sure that all of those rules are complied with. And if that means alterations to the driveway or whatever the case may be, that would be on us. And as far as addressing the question about, the number of conditional use permits in this municipality, Jason's correct that there are no limits on the number, and it's true that in some municipalities there are. So you're correct on that too. And I just wanted to point that out. But in as far as semis coming and going, just remind the committee that that we have decided, the owner has decided that there won't be any semi parking there, it would just be the campers.
I was thinking of the supplies that come for the sheds. I'm certainly, they come on something bigger than a straight truck. They'd be on a semi.
I was having them come on a semi-truck.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
was-
that makes sense. I brought that up, by the way.
No, I appreciate
Just
it.
common
Yeah.
courtesy for you, because if you go through all this work and now you've got a $30,000, $130,000 change to your driveway, you may say, boy, that wasn't so smart.
Yeah,
That's
no,
why,
I
okay?
appreciate that. I probably have a semi-truck load twice a year, but still, that's worth definitely, thank you.
That's what happens when it becomes a business. What wasn't a rule before may be a rule now.
Okay.
And you mentioned farmers. Farmers have exemptions to a whole lot of things. So, which you don't have and won't have.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
So the camper storage, you're proposing that there won't be any semi-trailer storage with it? It would just strictly be campers?
Just campers. I have one guy that's got a truck there that I let him know he needs to get it out. He's in another country right now. He's probably Somalian, and I'm just giving him some time to get back and get that truck and then the trailer out as well. So.
Well, in the email, I appreciate the fact that you've scaled way back from what your initial ambitions were, you know, whether it was the motocross, the semi-trailers, now we're narrowing it down to camper storage, sheds, and the lash studio. And I don't think any of us are asking questions with the lash studio. It's more about the other two occupations. I will say I appreciate the willingness on your part to modify your plans. I think the only question we have is what conditions would we put on this? And recognize that, you know, any one of your neighbors that have spoken today will be watching and will let us know if they think there's a violation. Probably most of them found out about your business because of the motocross. So that seems to be the greatest friction point here.
I do want to say that I don't have any intentions on opening the motocross to the public. That's just between me and my family, and I keep it that way. I will keep it that way.
If I could add to what Mr. Rice said, that if you wanted this to be a more sure thing for your campers and your buildings, if you got a digger in and dug up that motocross site tomorrow and planted grass, you'd have a lot more neighbors behind you. See nods in the background in case you want to turn around and look. They're there.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I guess as the committee, we have to decide. I am, like Supervisor Ray said, the Lash Studio hasn't had any questions, not a lot of questions on the construction. We have to decide on the storage of the campers. And then I think that would be our first thing. And then we need to have Jason bring up our conditions to go from there. I would say it was how I would like to look at this.
And if I understand, the limit on campers was to 25?
Yes, and
No more than?
I'm willing to work with you guys to find a balance, like a good ground that seems suitable for everyone. So.
Jason, can you pull up the overhead again that shows where the parking layouts, please? two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 25 would that'd be about what it is.
Want to jump into the findings of fact and conclusions of law? Or, okay. All right, I am going to go through these findings of fact just to summarize, because we didn't go through the full staff report before. So Samuel Romo, and that is the property owner with his wife Kendall at 2339 Highway 12 in the town of Baldwin. There's 3 uses being requested. 2 of the uses are not use as listed, but that is an option that we have in Chapter 15 under 15.2A53. The last studio would be evaluated as a major home occupation to 15.3454. The applicants are currently operating these business. Of course, each one is different in their focus. There's no retail storefront. Shed materials are delivered every 3 months on average. Sheds are picked up and delivered, and that from the site when sold. And 2 to 3 sheds are approximately built on site and moved off per month. The last studio is by appointment only. The campers and trailers are dropped off one at a time. During the peak season, 2 to 3 campers are dropped off per month. These factors help limit the traffic on the property. The shed construction is happening in that main outbuilding or accessory structure that measures 28 by 38. The last studio is 12 by 16, and that's only by appointments. There's no on-site employees right now, but the applicant would like to have the possibility of 2 seasonal employees in the future. Operating hours are 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, and Saturday operations are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The last studio would have the same operation hours, but again, it's by appointment. The applicant has abundant parking on the property, so the customers will have access to a sufficient sanitary system within the principal dwelling as well with the Lash business. Outdoor lighting will be minimal, consisting of 2 shop lights mounted on the accessory building that are currently there. All business activity is conducted within those buildings and the 2 designated camper storage areas, and signage is already present on the building. So conclusion of law, maintenance of safe and healthful conditions. The applicant states that all products are made on site and made in a clean, controlled indoor accessory building. The prevention and control of water pollution, including sedimentation, and that they don't involve any water pollution if there's no trucks and oil out there. And the site would have adequate sanitary in the dwelling. Again, we're not looking at the motocross track with this CUP application, so as I go through these, that is not being considered. The existing topography and drainage features, it's mostly a field, and the proposed use is not going to affect the vegetative cover or drainage patterns. In fact, they'll probably add some like they did with those trees. There's no environmental sensitive areas and that were on site. For these 3 uses, there's no land alteration proposed, so the amount of erosion associated with it would not be significant. The dwelling and accessory structures sit on approximately 200 to 300 feet back from the road at the end of the driveway. I can add here, applicant will comply with DOT driveway requirements. If that helps Supervisor Van Summeren. Okay, that would be a good place for it. The need for the proposed use in the location. Most of the area is ag and residential, but they do have some campers already there, so that kind of demonstrates some use. Compatibility, being that it is mainly residential on site and they're going to be doing this as a home business with their own staff for the most part, that they're going to be discreet, clean, and self-contained, and that the amount of traffic will be limited for delivery vehicles, camper drop-offs, and lash appointments. We've already covered the sanitary, and staff believe that the amount of pollution risk that the applicant has, especially now that there's no semi-trucks with fluids out back, would be minimal, and all the other washing products and stuff are contained within the 2 accessory structures. And one thing that we would like to see the applicant is make sure that the trash is contained with all the building materials and kind of a constant construction site. Any conclusions or findings that the committee would like to tweak?
Someone from the public talked about a fire with the campers. I would presume that many of these campers would have some sort of LP gas or something. What protocols go through safe storage? I don't know with campers. I mean, should we be asking that those things be safely protected in some way or disconnected? To mitigate that risk? Because that could be
Winterized.
too. What's that?
Winterized, they'd be winterized.
Okay.
Which you'd make sure, water and stuff like that's taken out of them, but also that any gas items are turned off.
Okay, so should we put that on there? Because that might be the
Sure.
responsibility of whoever is
That would-
seeking.
Do they store them just in the winter, or do they store them all year?
Store them all year. Yep. So I would suggest maybe adding a condition in that states that any LP cylinders are to be closed, or that the valves are closed. A lot of times people leave them on because there's automatically lines going to their fridges and stuff. That wouldn't be unreasonable to ask, and then it's no more dangerous than somebody's grill on their back porch at that point.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm going to add that here, but I'm going to go through them first. So the first one is that the applicant is responsible for securing any necessary local, state, federal permits, licenses, and approvals. That includes building inspections, highway access, et cetera. There shall be no parking, deliveries, or pickups off from US Highway 12, so that any trucks would have to go into the driveway. Vehicles associated shall comply with any town road weight limits. All trash on the property shall be contained. The property shall be kept in a neat and orderly manner. Shed construction operations shall be limited to the existing 28 by 38 foot accessory building. Shed storage will remain in the 24 by 50 mapped storage area and will not exceed 8 sheds, because during the public hearing, we had a comment about like 15 sheds or something there. Applicant shall have annual inspection by United Fire Department, so that's probably where we need to add any propane tanks in. Something like that, Supervisor
Put a D on
Rice?
United above that while you're at it, will you please?
What's that?
Go one line up
Yep.
and put a D at the end of Unite.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. How about a period there too?
Question for you, Jason. The storage shed area, that was from the original one, the new one, now that he moved it to the back area, is that still 24 by 50?
Yep, that's what he proposed.
Okay.
So, yep. Hours of operation, 8 AM to 8 PM.
Is that Monday through Friday?
I think it was Monday,
Or Monday through Saturday?
7 AM to 7 PM, Monday through Friday. So, okay, I'll just take this one here. Okay, applicant to provide proof of insurance to the town of Baldwin. Well, that was one of the things that the town had requested. The town also needs to see the appropriate licenses for the lash business. Again, we didn't really know what those were. The camper and trailer storage will be limited to a total of 25 trailers. We know it's just camper storage now. And camper storage will be kept to within the 2 proposed 30 by 125 foot storage areas. No semi-truck outdoor storage. No more than 2 seasonal employees who don't reside on site are permitted. The conditional use will be reevaluated in 2 years with the option to renew by the committee. And then the last 2 are standard conditions, and that the applicant agrees to these conditions and they'll allow us access, and that it transfers to any future owners of the property. Now, one of the things that we don't have in here is screening. And at the public hearing, there was lengthy conversation from the committee about screening, and the applicant went ahead and put in those 38 trees along Highway 12. But at that time, you had also talked about maybe a row of trees or something along the east side of these campers, because I believe the neighbors had talked about like a new house and being able to see them from across the field. And I just wanted to bring that up. It's not in there as staff suggested, because I don't think the committee really came down to a consensus on it, but I just wanted to jog your memories on that.
That's true. That was discussed. I think we were talking about an 8-foot high fence, because I think you said 6 foot and I said, somebody, Corp Council said no, 8 feet.
Yep.
And you aren't wrong very often, but I remembered it.
We all make mistakes.
So I still think that would be one of the provisions, that along that camper storage on the east side, you know, on the west side it's covered by trees, on the south side it's covered by trees, but there's going to be people, there are people already now on the east side, and I think common courtesy would be an 8-foot high fence. Not a chain link fence, but a...
Privacy.
Yeah, okay, solid fence, thank you.
Privacy, yep.
What about the loop there too? Oh, can you go back to that?
Yep.
Bring that down and just the loop. That would give then, so that would cover US 12 then too.
So the whole of the east side.
The east side and then just looping it to the driveway where the shed.
Yeah, so all the way around farther to the west there? There, you go. That's what you had in mind.
I don't feel strongly about that. I think adding a fence.
Does the
has a lot of
applicant
expense,
agree to
but
that
8-foot
condition?
fence should get enough screen. People,
It's just, otherwise the shed will help buffer. And then if there's just an opening there.
So you'd like to start
It's
it
minor.
here then?
Well, that's still, if we're back in here, we gotta leave enough room, obviously, for access.
You want to
but
come up, Samuel?
We just wanna try to minimize the. Go ahead.
If it's acceptable or possible, I'd like to do trees. I don't know what the cost would be to put a solid 8-foot wooden fence there. It's just something that I'd hope you would consider allowing me to do, if possible. I'm willing to work with you guys, though. I'd preferably like to do trees if that's something you would consider. Rather, a solid wooden fence would be rather costly and expensive, and that's a decent ways to put one there. So I want to work with you guys regardless.
Well, here's the problem with the fence, or with the trees. Every other one dies. That's been my experience. And it takes 20 years for them to grow so that they shade the area we're talking about. A fence goes up overnight, and already it takes care of it. It's really a much better deal. Planting trees is fine, but like I said, and I saw the picture of those trees, they're a long ways from providing shelter or from providing a fence.
the applicant also brought up in that about maybe starting the fence then a little bit farther to the east here because he's got a solar array here. And so that does kind of already block the view from the road, but and that if the fence was right in front of this array, and from being on site, it does come very low to the ground, that it would block his sunlight.
I'm
Where's
okay
the,
with that.
property line, Jason?
What's that?
Where's the property line?
Property line's quite a ways to the east here. Now, this is probably,
There already is a decent wood line between the neighbors there.
is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
There, there's already a decent wood line between the field there and the neighbors. I don't know if you can, if there's a picture showing that, but it's not just field and then straight to their house. There's a decent screening, natural screening. There we can see it right there. And I did have Conklin Tree put some of those 38 trees along that line where he saw some spots that were spotty. Conklin Tree does, I know you mentioned not having good luck with every tree, but they'll replace any tree that doesn't make it. But I get what you're saying. They take a while to grow, so.
Part of the problem we have with doing this is that we have to stay kind of consistent too. So if we're saying to everybody else that's doing a CUP that we require certain types of screening, if we say, well, you don't have to and you have to, then we're not being consistent. So that's part of the deal behind it. Now, we don't necessarily have to go all the way back to the end of the parking area if like where the camper storage lot was more restricted than that. It doesn't go all the way back.
I see, yeah. It does not. There's
So like that area further to the south may not need screening once you get back beyond the end of the 125 feet headed towards the south direction.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott, but we also have this roll back here,
Yeah, that's,
so I would say the right way would be all the way along that,
yeah.
because otherwise you'll see the sides of where the truck trailers are parked now. On the picture, not if they're there now, I don't know, but on the picture. Yeah, I think that would be the best for neighborly.
But we could eliminate
Getting along.
the ones in the front if the solar arrays there, breaking that up.
I wonder if I could start the fence where my little shelter, or my two shelters here on the edge there, then go over. That would be helpful.
Camping trailers aren't necessarily ugly, but pretty much they are from the backside all year. Yeah.
Between the solar array and those outbuildings, and that's probably already gonna screen a lot, and maybe it's not right at the corner, but maybe he starts about halfway in this building to provide a little protection for Highway 12.
Right, whatever you put here also is protection from Highway 12 back over here when you're seeing that.
So my question is, when would this be up for, did we have a 2-year review on this?
Yes.
So in the event, 2 years from now, that neighbors that would be looking into this area have a real problem with the view, the fence could be something we would consider at that point? I want to suggest we move on from that. Jerry's like, no.
I'm saying no, because if it doesn't go up now, I will bet a large amount of money that it won't go up then. Because right now, we're trying to get the permit. Back then, it's just renew it, and then it won't happen. So I say, no, that's all part of going in. It's all part of the expense of going in. Then that may make it easier to approve 2 years from now. And that might be the determining factor then. That's why I say take the deduction this year, build the fence, and go.
One thing would be 2 years from now would be to see how the trees that I planted are doing as well.
I don't think the tree thing is good enough, okay? It's not going to, the tree thing is not going to accomplish what we want you to accomplish.
Well, I understand.
Mhm.
I received no complaints over these campers. They've been parked there for years, and nobody had an issue with them.
But now they have. It's because of all these other things, now they have. And so now, we can't go back in retrospect, but we can start at this point forward. And that's what we have to do with this.
Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to be argumentative at
okay.
all. When the 2-year renewal comes, would that not allow for the discussion of this fence or planting trees or doing something to add more screening?
I think the biggest issue here, it's not that we're trying to work against you in any means, but you have to understand on our perspective too, that we have to keep consistency.
Yes.
So when we're setting up ordinances and the things that work for St. Croix County, and people come to us for all different conditions all over, we have to stay consistent. If we start to say, well, we'll do this here, and we'll do it that way there, then that consistency is lost, and then we put ourselves in a bad position to be, again, to stay consistent with the policies that are within the ordinance and to stay with what the ordinance is trying to do. So the purpose of this, when you get into a commercial environment, you're trying to create a screening method that protects the neighbors, and it protects them today. So we have to look at it that way, and that's why this is being brought up the way it is. It has nothing to do personally. I understand the situations and your setbacks and things, but again, because it's going to something that would be considered more in an industrial environment, and if you read all of the ordinances that we have to follow under those pretense,
I
then
think
the screening is there.
I think it's a good idea then I think in retrospect it's gonna add a little bit means of security too. So, somebody who keeps a camper there would feel better about it. So
Okay, and also keep in mind that the opposite, on the other hand, if you don't like that, the code says no exterior storage. That means none. So this is really pretty easy compared to that. Yeah.
Okay.
This whole fence issue with the campers really comes down to whether we're going to allow campers in there. To me, it's, when you do a search in Wisconsin about whether outdoor camper storage is permitted in a home occupation, it says no. Most places is not. If it was in an ag area, DATCAP says that it might have to be licensed. So that I still have a lot of problems with the outdoor camper storage. Before we make a motion on everything, I'd like to also add in our Okay, so in our list of conditions, I think it would be prudent for us versus, I know that the track is not part of this, and it's not really what we're talking about. I would like to see a condition in our condition list saying that we would like the track, whether it's a website, a Facebook post, whatever, taken down, and that if that track is used for public use, then that violates the CUP.
Can't do it because it's not part of the.
I have no problem with that.
Jason shaking his head.
How about we do that any advertising shall only advertise the uses allowed by a CUP on site?
There you go.
Very elegant. Okay.
Just reversed it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other changes or?
Yeah. So I,
Follow on the camper for the fence?
I guess I will make a motion that we approve the CUPs with the conditions excluding the camper storage.
Motion, you have a second. No second? Okay, so it dies for lack of a second. Do we have another motion? Okay, go ahead.
I move we approve the CUP with all of the conditions listed.
Okay, we have a motion with all the conditions that are listed as amended. Is there a second?
I guess I'll have to second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Well, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And any nays?
No.
One nay. All right, so we have a 3-1.
Okay. The next one, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to kick it off. Chris
Can,
Poston, our recycling specialist, is
Um,
here.
Just a second, I'm sorry, but it's 7:58. Can we take
Sure.
say a 7-10 minute break?
Okay.
7 minute, okay.
7 minutes.
Then to item number 5, which is the recycling program presentation. And thank you for being here.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I'm just going to talk a little bit about historically what we've done with our recycling program. Last year we tried out a lot of new things. I'll recap that and then just kind of check with you on where we want to go for 2026. So first of all, why do we have a recycling program? It's because it's the law, and residents, businesses, and other organizations all must recycle. So that's why we have our program in place. Plus, obviously, it helps protect our environment and it saves our resources. So the St. Croix County Recycling Program is funded through 2 different grants. The first one is the DNR's recycling grant, which covers 100% of the recycling program. It's approximately $195,000 to $200,000 a year. 50% of it is distributed to 13 municipalities that have drop-off centers, and the other 50% covers the outreach efforts, operational costs, and my salary and benefits. The DATCAP grant covers about 33% of St. Croix County's hazardous waste or clean sweep program. The clean sweep is a grant that requires a minimum of a 25% match from St. Croix County, which is approximately $22,500. Funding from property taxes covers approximately 66% of the program, and this past year that was a little over $55,000. So we have recycling events and different programs, but the items that need to be recycled are categorized by grant eligible and non-grant eligible. So on the screen right now, the items that are grant eligible, there are full landfill bans on the items that go into our curbside or the drop-off centers, our plastics, cardboards, metals, glass, and so forth. Then there are tires, and the county has hosted 2 free collection events, one last year and one this year. Plus, the town of Richmond has a drop-off site for tires year-round, and it's fee-based, but we subsidized that this past year. Also, yard waste is banned from landfills. Waste management, which covers quite a bit of the residents, offers yard waste carts, and then there are 3 municipalities that provide yard waste sites for their residents. And then there is 1 business in town that accepts yard waste. So prior to 2024, we did collection events for appliances, electronics, and tires. And these were considered pass-through programs. So I just worked with a vendor. They provided the staff, they came with their trucks, they collected the fees from residents, and we managed the programs and promoted the events. They were held both in the spring and fall, and we worked with 3 different municipalities in the spring, 3 different ones in the fall, just to spread out the different locations so it was convenient to as many residents as possible. And the residents covered the cost of the recycling. So in 2025, we found some new vendors and some new ways to provide these collection events for free. We held 2 free electronic events with First Choice out of Menominee. We held 2 free appliance and scrap metal collection events, and we partnered with Amy Auto and Salvage. And there was 1 free tire collection event with First State Tire, and they're located in Minnesota. We have free, continuous, year-round hazardous waste voucher program with a vendor up in Somerset called Logistics Recycling. We also included with that now that we accept the products with embedded lithium-ion batteries and the lithium-ion batteries. So that's been incorporated into that as well. So I'm just going to touch on each one of those and give you a little more detail on it. First off, the recycling events. As I said, we had 2 events, one in the spring, one in the fall, and our vendor, First Choice, provided almost all the staff for that. Just myself and 1 other person showed up as a presence from the county. It was no cost to the county, no cost to residents, and this is not intended for commercial or businesses. The Sheriff's Department is always notified in case we need traffic control. Now, First Choice is subsidized by OEM or e-cycling funds, such as funds from Sony, Panasonic, so forth, for electronics recycling. Here are a few stats on what our years look like. Years 2020 through 2023, that is when we had that pass-through program, and residents would recycle for a fee. And our tonnage was all over the board. Last year, we had one free, we had 2 collection events this year and 1 last year, and obviously the collected weight went through the roof, and our participation was very, very big. Also recently, the City of New Richmond has opened a permanent free electronics collection container through the same vendor, First Choice, and this is open to all residents, not just New Richmond residents. It can be used April through November. Our next program was the appliance and scrap metal recycling. Again, similar format. We had 2 events, one in the spring, one in the fall. The difference was that this was staffed 100% by CDD staff. We had a couple other folks within the county that jumped in to help too, but it was a very labor-intensive event. It's no cost to the county and it's no cost to residents. Again, this is not intended for businesses. When we look at some of the collection numbers, again, 2020 through 2023 was when we collected appliances only, and it was for a fee. And then the last 2 years show huge jumps in weights collected, units collected. And then one aspect of this is any funds that we get through Amory Auto and Salvage, scrap metal value, they return to the K-9 program for St. Croix County as a donation. So we've had a couple years of that, donating close to $8,000. The third one is our tire recycling program. So last 2 years, we had 1 free collection event. It was staffed by community development, very labor-intensive events. As I mentioned before, we also partnered with the town of Richmond to subsidize passenger tires at 40% when they were brought to their recycling center. And that program was available all year long. So when you look at the bottom 4 years and the weights that were collected, the units collected, similar pattern. Last 2 years are through the roof. So the challenge that we have with this, last year was our first year trying it, and we budgeted $15,000 that came out of the recycling budget, and it covered the tires that we had. This year, people came out of the woodwork for this, and our expenses jumped up to over $35,000. So the remaining $20,000 we pulled from the hazardous waste budget, which was part of the taxpayer-based funding. Our hazardous waste program has changed as well. We used to have collection events. Up until 2020, there were 2 events held annually, again, spring and fall. From 20 to 24, there were 1 2-day events in the fall, and this was due to the rising costs. They were just insanely skyrocketing. Then in 2025, we developed an online voucher program, which provides drop-off opportunities 12 months out of the year. It initially started because there was going to be construction going on out at the Hudson Highway shop. So we had to come up with a different plan, but it ended up that we saw significant savings because we had no mobilization of equipment and staff, and we didn't have to pay for the minimum packaging costs, and we don't have to provide a couple dozen people, for a couple days. So we had great savings with that, and so now we're getting more for our money. We can actually use that money to pay for the hazardous waste itself instead of all of the other things associated with it. Again, residents can now bring their lithium-ion batteries and embedded products directly to logistics recycling for free. It does cost the county $600 annually to manage that program, $50 a month. And this is kind of what our participation and expenses and weights look like. The last 2 years, With the change to the voucher and not having a newsletter out there, our weights have gone down quite a bit, but I feel like we're going to bounce back from that. It's just a matter of people understanding what this new format is like. Our expenses, we were up to almost $90,000, and this past year was at $42,000. So we're seeing, again, a big savings. And also when logistics recycling moved into St. Croix County, that was a huge benefit for us because in the past our vendors had come from Iowa or Green Bay, and there was nothing convenient for our residents year round. So that's been a wonderful thing for us to have. In response to your concern about ditch dumping, we tried something new this year. It's for upholstered furniture, and we subsidized the disposal. We told people, bring your old furniture because it's difficult to donate because of the moisture and contamination of upholstered furniture. So they could bring any of these. We had 4 items they could bring in: couches, love seats, upholstered chairs, and ottomans for $10 an item. We collected 83 units. There were 40 participants, and the expenses were $1,360. So it was an experiment. This is one of the things that I'd like some feedback on, whether or not you'd like us to move forward with that. So, new opportunities for 2026. Logistics Recycling, I talked quite a bit about them. They are a hazardous waste vendor. They have a sister company called Redemption Recycling, and they have approached St. Croix County and offered to manage our electronics and scrap metal collections at the same location as the hazardous waste. So what that means is recycling of the same products can be brought to, pardon me, I'm going to start over. The recycling of the same products that we have at our current events could all be brought to the Redemption Recycling location in Somerset. It would be a free drop-off option, and they are a certified recycler, meaning that all those electronics with the personal data and whatever is managed and recorded responsibly. So residents could bring their items to Somerset all year long without an appointment. Now, hazardous waste is different. People have to have an appointment to drop that off. And Redemption Recycling can also provide collection events, like out in Baldwin, folks on the east side of the county, as a convenience. So going forward, what does our 2026 program look like? The county can potentially offer the convenience of a one-stop shop for hazardous waste, electronics, appliances, the yard equipment, and the scrap metal recycling. This is all no charge to residents, which helps minimize that ditch dumping, and also options for collection events or permanent drop-off site in Somerset. So my questions to you are, do we continue with like the costly annual tire collections, maybe switch to an alternate year, or maybe we consider a minimal fee that goes with that? Do we continue to subsidize tires at the town of Richmond's site, which is all year long, and we had been subsidizing at about 40%? And is the upholstered furniture collection worth trying again? So, what are your thoughts? What do you think about the programs that we had for 2025? Should we continue with those? Do you want me to make any adjustments? Looking for feedback.
Your question about subsidizing town of Richmond, how much do we spend on that part? Do you have that with you?
I believe it was approximately $1,300 this year.
That was my thought, that we weren't really getting a lot out of that.
The only thing that it does provide is a year-round option. People
Right.
can still bring them there. They pay full price. So they have that option regardless.
Right.
So
I did like the upholstery. One, I participated in that.
Did
I
you?
enjoyed
Great.
that. Yeah.
Was that your sofa?
Yeah, no, that was not mine on the picture, no.
Sorry about that.
There weren't too many worthy of bringing home that got dropped off there. They really needed to be disposed of.
If you could scroll back up, you had one other question. I don't remember what it was.
The tires.
Tires.
So our first year matched our budget perfectly. this year, it was, the turnout was far exceeded what we had planned for. And it obviously seems to be a big hit with the residents and something that they think is needed. And especially people are always talking, there are many people that said, I pulled these tires out of the ditches that I see on my way home every day. But it's a very expensive program.
I would suggest that we keep up the tire. Maybe we want a subsidy, but tires are way too convenient to throw in ditches. You know, sofas, refrigerators, not quite so much, although that does happen. But I think tires, and they are really bad for the environment. What comes off of them is not bad, not good. So I think rather than switching alternate years, you know, we should buy down that supply that's in everybody's barn and garage over the years. We should maybe see a drop in the amount. But I think it's important we do that. And I like the idea of town of Richmond site too, because it's year round.
Continue with subsidizing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the upholstered furniture. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear you very well.
And the upholstered furniture also, all three
Okay,
of
but,
those.
all right, so for the tires, you still think we should continue with that? But what was the catch to that? Okay, I heard a catch to it, but.
Yeah, maybe a contribution would be.
Oh,
we
yeah,
could
yes,
ask for a
yeah,
contribution.
we could have, yeah.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Any other feedback for me?
Yes. Jason, when you go to the Towns Association meetings, have you been discussing some of the recycling programs with the townships and get feedback from them?
Yeah, we taken.
This is just an incredible program that can help with a lot of their issues. I know that when I was on the town board in Star Prairie, we had a huge rash of tires from the speedway and people that were doing salvage operations and where you could see the cuts in the tires where they'd collect the rims for turn-in, but put the tires in the ditches. So having these programs and not having to go down in the ditches like I had to personally do many times for refrigerators and furniture and tires, I really appreciate that these programs are here and really would definitely support continuing the programs. The thing to even possibly talk to them about is some of them, they have particular roads that are the worst roads where they're the drop points. They seem to collect all of everybody's stuff gets thrown in those ditches, and to potentially work between I don't know if the highway department could do it, or to have signage where the township could purchase signs that show possibly a QR code or something of how people can get rid of stuff to put along on some of those roads to maybe modify their tradition to have to deposit in the ditch there.
Bad habits, yeah.
Camera, like a glass thing.
We've tried that. We actually, we in the township, we actually bought game cameras and put up that would take photos and send them to our phones.
I do, just to let you know, I do send promotional information to all of the municipalities prior to our events so that they can post them on their web pages and keep their residents updated through whatever means they normally communicate. We did have a couple of municipalities reach out to us asking if it was okay, because we had a limit of 12 tires, asking if it was okay if they could bring some that they collected from the ditches, and we of course said yes. So yeah, so they're paying attention to it and making use of it, but I think there's a whole lot more that could happen. So
2 questions. What kind of uptake are we getting on the lithium battery recycling? My Rotary Club's done that 2 years in a row. We do it as a single-day event. What I find is that there's not a huge awareness about it, you know, like the lithium in a rechargeable toothbrush, for example.
Yeah.
Keep it out of landfills. Are
Right.
you getting much uptake?
You know, I can contact LRI and get some numbers for you.
There just doesn't seem to be much education. But you know, anything we can do to keep this kind of stuff out of our landfills and out of our
Right.
ditches and other,
Mhm.
I think people want to do good, and sometimes there's just not either the resources or awareness.
Exactly.
How do we get the information to people? Because not everybody is going to websites.
Well, we have a marketing group, and like Adam does press releases to local publications and their Facebook posts, and then we pay additional money to expand
So boosting it.
the
and things.
circumference or the
Yeah.
the range of those messages.
Yeah, that's good. I think in the spring in particular, because of Earth Month and other things, there's just, people are spring cleaning. That's a really good time to raise the awareness. And if you're going to clean your garage, now's the time
Exactly.
to think about this. All right. I appreciate everything you do.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you. Appreciate you. Any other feedback or questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, we'll move on to business item number 6, consideration of discontinuing plan to develop Apple River property on County Road H, parcel 038-1051-60-000.
I'll take this one. I think it's pretty short. So this is an aerial image of the property that the county took back on tax deed back in 2020. The village of Star Prairie is right here on this line, so the village is just over here to the right. This is County Road C going to the south. Kirk's storage collision area here is right on the corner. Just to give you some basic layout of where this is located, it is located along the Apple River, kind of just to the south end of Cedar Lake in the town of Star Prairie. And so this parcel here is roughly 3.6 acres. It's got about 550 feet of frontage, depending on how you measure it along the Apple River here. However, from the ordinary high water mark back to the right-of-way of County Road H, it's only about 90 feet, so it's a very narrow parcel. And so normally for like any kind of building and that would happen on this site, we'd have a 75-foot setback from the water and a 50-foot setback from the right-of-way. And so there was an old dwelling on site, it ended up burning, county ended up cleaning it up. At that time, it was decided to take and retain the property potentially for like a canoe access site going down to the river. After considering and looking at other options, that there's very limited parking here on site, and it is kind of dangerous because of this curve here in County Road H. And this is a reduced speed area, but everybody still moves pretty quickly through there. And so we believe in parks and that our money and our focus would be better spent over here to the west at our current launch, where we've got a bigger tract of land and we can take and make some of those bathroom improvements and stuff to that site and more trail development than here. And with the safety concern, it just doesn't make sense in that to invest a lot of money or to actually promote this site. So, but the reason why it's back before the committee is that there was a resolution that was done back in 2020 to retain it for parks. And so that's where we wanted to make sure that the Community Development Committee was on board with not having that as a park property. And then it would still go to the admin committee for approval for sale and that before it goes actually on the market. So, but that's kind of the reason for the shift here. And I know that Supervisor Coner had brought up some improvements to Apple River, and so if we're gonna be doing that rather than having multiple different parks close by, it seems like that would be the best interest. I think that just in general, and shockingly enough, today the town clerk of the town of Star Prairie reached out to our zoning staff, and they've been cutting a bunch of trees, I believe, on our parcel there. And so, you know, when you have a little piece like this with a bunch of property owners surrounding it, they tend to encroach on that public property. And so I think that's what we're really seeing, which is another reason that maybe it wouldn't be the best park property.
So I know I was actively involved in this one back when it was taken over by the county. The original owner was Sam Satterland, I believe. The property was taken over by tax deed back at the time. Part of the issues with this, I really have real strong concerns about putting it publicly as a property that could potentially be built on again. And the reason for that is really want you to even double check, because when the original house was there, basically you were parking in the actual highway right away, or the County Road H right away in front of the garage. The garage was built within 6-8 inches of the highway right away. And so then the back of the garage went back, and there was less than 6 feet behind the garage. And then it went down a real steep embankment going down to the river. So the picture here kind of doesn't do real good justice to show that embankment. You don't have any of the elevation lines on it, but the actual buildable site by the green triangle is it's really a small site for construction of a dwelling, and it would be a very unsafe site. We have similar situations to that further down County Road H, down along the southern end of Cedar Lake. And we've brought that down to 35 miles an hour, and it's still extremely unsafe where when cars are at those dwellings using them for events on all of those cabins, they're actually parked inside the road right away where they're physically over the white line. And it's very unsafe. Don't want to end up pushing it this way on this one. And the hard part with this, if you put it up for sale, obviously if it went to the neighbor and they were attaching it to another parcel, and the deal was that the parcel was made whole with another parcel so that it couldn't be resold as an independent parcel, that wouldn't be an issue for getting it back on the tax roll. I did talk to a few members of the town of Star Prairie, and they're very adamant also that they have big concerns of the sale of this property on where it would be buildable. So it would have to be something where there would be deed restrictions placed that it cannot have any types of dwellings or sheds, or where it would be just parking and access to the river would be okay, but anything else going above that would not work, or can be sold to a neighbor again. But the other thing would be that I did talk to the Star Prairie Fish and Game, and they may have interest in it too. The difference would be, obviously, if a neighbor is interested in it, we can get it back on the tax roll versus or another organization, a nonprofit. So I just wanted to bring these things up so that, but again, the town of Star Prairie, from the members that I spoke with, had the same concerns I did, that it was really an unsafe lot to have potential for, is if somebody buys it, they're gonna wanna build on it. And so we're gonna really be pushed to say, well, this was grandfathered, or this is that, or it's always a fight with that. And then do we really wanna go there and be involved with that kind of situation?
So in regards to the non-conforming building, as soon as that structure is removed for a period of 1 year or 12 months, the grandfathered clause goes away. So they would have to come through and that for any kind of variance application for it. But as a landowner, you can also encumber your property with whatever kind of requirement and that you want. So if you wanted to put a deed restriction on there, and that it couldn't be used for a dwelling site, you could potentially do that as well. Just realizing that might take some of that value, so.
Well, wouldn't the first thing, the person who owns lot 038, 1051, 4000, wouldn't be to approach him and if he wanted to add that to his, get it back on the, I like the idea of back on a tax roll. If he lives there, he probably wouldn't mind owning that either, you know, it's like, look what I own. And make it so it cannot put the deed restriction on that it's not a buildable lot. That would be my first course of action. Contact him, give him a deal, because it really does the county no good.
Go ahead.
I guess I would say for our purposes here, I will make a motion to approve the resolution to, what's the actual name on it? To, discontinue ownership. And then I would say that we, obviously, the administration committee will bring up deed restrictions and whatever else, but for our purposes here, we're not gonna use it as a park. We should sell it.
Okay.
Second.
Just so you understand the process, and so this was a tax deeded property that's never been offered for sale. So it'd be required to be offered for sale, just like we do all the other tax deed properties. Those bids will go to the administration committee. And so that'll be the process. And so at that point, they can accept or reject any of the bids that they receive. That'll be the process going forward. If you want to tax deed restrict it, that's a separate action that won't come up before the sale. So I mean, you could probably do it at that point. You could instruct us to restrict it at the point of sale.
When we say restrict it, so we would place a building improvement restriction on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible to do that. I don't know that it's necessarily necessary though, because it's not a buildable parcel. It does not meet our code requirements.
Just makes it real plain in English if it is, though.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got a motion and a second. So any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So that moves unanimous. And the favorite part, the financial report.
All right, we'll have you guys out of here before midnight. All right, Register of Deeds, one of the things that we take a look at. So this is through October, so we got 10 months. We're at 902,000 in Register of Deeds fees compared to 851 last year. We hit $1 million last year. So we should hit over that this year, which means we'll hit budget. So that's looking good. Looks like growth has ticked up just a little bit from prior years. Parks then, still sitting at 352. You're still missing some of that revenue, huh, Jason? They keep telling me there's a journal entry missing, there's more revenue coming. I don't know. It's through October. We're about 50,000 short from where we were last year. Normally, we're about done with revenues at this point in the year. So unless they're hiding some that they haven't recorded yet, it looks like it might be down a bit. And I think that's all that I had. If you look at UW Extension, other professional services, we'd contracted the year at 244, the same rate or number of educators we'd had in prior years, but because so many of the educators left during mid-year, we only pay for what we actually use. So we're significantly under budget on expenses there. That's all I got. Any questions? All right, see, told you we'd be out before midnight.
All right. So is there any request for future agenda items? I know we had the one. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I can hand it to you, Scott or Jason, but this is to have us have an action item about the parcel near the, I hate to say Trestle Bridge, but the area in North Hudson that adjoins the property that is owned by the county. I'd like to have that as an action item, if possible. And I also, secondly, and it may just be something that Jason has planned for the future, but I keep reading about challenges with increasing nitrates in our water. I have a couple things I can source here. There's a new report called Nitrates on Tap, and it's talking about the growing contamination here in the state of Wisconsin with our groundwater, and reading a book about it as well. So I'd like to see what the latest reports are. Related to that, I'd like to see if we have nutrient management plans or any data on the properties surrounding the proposed solar field with Excel project. I'd like to know if the properties around there are any kind of nutrient management plan. And we've talked a little about groundwater. I'd like to know in that part of the county what the nitrate levels are, what we know about groundwater contamination.
There are very few animals in that area. That's a cropland area, but there may be.
Well, no, but there may be a few animals, but they're spreading manure, and they're spreading other properties. I've seen what the plot maps look like. The trend line on some of these wells is only going in one direction, and it's not going down. So it's one of the studies that was published recently was that because of the amount of animals that we have, they're producing the equivalent of, I think it's 3 million humans equivalent of manure extra in the county. So basically half the population of the state of Wisconsin is being produced in this county as a function, or at least in the St. Croix River watershed, as a function of the CAFOs that we have. So, yeah, and it's going, all that stuff's going somewhere. It's not staying in the lagoons.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also think we'd like to discuss the number of home occupations that we should allow. I think that's something that is a time to talk about, timely to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get all that, Jason?
Yeah. So I was planning on bringing in Patty Schrank for a water quality update in January meeting. So is it okay if we do that? And she'll have all the data we're still analyzing data and getting results from the citizen groundwater monitoring program and the septic density study and stuff. So Stevens Point's been a little bit later this year on getting that data back because there's a lot of other counties that are concerned about water quality as well. So that's what I was planning on, is in January we'll have all that data. And then she'll also lay out what they're looking at for 2026 programming. Similar to like Chris did tonight.
Okay. So we have, is there any announcements?
Okay. Oh, I got two of them I'd like to take and share with the committee. I know it's getting late, but on that same topic, so that new grant that we got to really evaluate the effectiveness of water treatment systems, and that is also in a bunch of outreach and education. So I believe it's like February 18th, we're going to have a pretty big outreach and education event over at the Ag Center. We're going to be bringing in some specialists from Stevens Point and stuff. Again, that's all very, very new yet. Don't mock in that date. But here is kind of the survey to kind of start gauging the interest of the public, the concerns that the public has, and that within the county and their water system. And so this is something in that I know we've got over 120 survey responses already. So on that, there is a fair amount of interest here. So, and this is done in partnership with our public health department, of course. So we'll have that data too by January. So, and then the last one, the county's tree sale went live the beginning of November here. and it's off to a good start. One of the things that's new this year is that we're trying to sell some larger trees for housing developments and these new houses on vacant lots, basically. And so offering some nicer maples and elms and that to assist, and they've been really good sellers. So that's available. That'll be available through the end of April. That's all I've got. Well, actually, I got two other things. We got 2 producer-led grants. One was for the dry run grant for $10,800. The other one was for $15,800. That was for the Apple Willow, which if you remember just a couple months ago, and that you guys approved of that producer-led group. And so they're already getting funding to start implementing the BMPs.
All right. Any other announcements? Well, seeing none, we'll close our meeting at 8:47.
Alrighty.